Okay. So, I'm sure, not too sure on like who's all in here and whatnot, but let's start off with my health stuff right off the bat. The so I had found a lump the other day, and I wasn't too sure what that was, so I got it looked at today. Fortunately, it doesn't really seem to be anything too major, so thankfully it's not a tumor or anything. But I'm still gonna go and get an ultrasound for that at some point. So in the next 2 3 weeks. So yeah, I just want to make sure everything's okay. Thought I had testicular cancer, which is which would not be fun, to be honest. Glad it doesn't really seem to be anything too major, so that's always a good sign. But I won't know for sure until the ultrasound, but it sounds like it might be okay. On a more positive note though, I did get my x-rays back for my knee. Sounds like nothing's, broken or fractured, so that's good. So I'm going to be starting physio first for my knee at some point. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not too sure when my MRI is going to be. I hope that's the same day as my ultrasound. But that's that's that. So got all the important health stuff out of the way. So we'll see how things go from now on and everything. Everything seems to be good. That's good to hear. I mean, yeah. Time will time will tell if there is anything actually serious because I have 3 balls. So I'm the most ballsiest motherfucker right now. but but yeah, anyways, so I hope that my ultrasound and my MRI are on the same day. So that's that's that. Anyways, moving on to more fun notes and more I guess it could be important notes depending on what happens. The um the conservative leadership debate was yesterday. So we'll start off with watching that cuz I know it's going to be a gold mine of just a bunch of psychotic lunatics, especially if Derek Sloan is there. If Derek Sloan is in here, it's going to be an awesome.
And to my granddaughter Emily, who calls me every night to say good night. Good night, Emily.
Many of us second guess politicians. But to get up on stage and debate in front of the entire nation takes courage. And tonight, all our participants deserve our thanks and appreciation.
And speaking of courage, let's take a moment to thank the 2,000 men and women of the armed forces who are deployed all over the world right now. And let's thank their families who are here in Canada keeping up the home front. As we sit here tonight for a democratic debate, these military members and their families are really at the sharp end of democracy.
There's going to be nothing
Bravo
democratic
Zulu
about
to these
this.
men and women, particularly those close to Ukraine.
When Rick and I were asked to plan the official debates, we surveyed a cross-section of Canadians. The clear message was that they wanted tonight to be heavy on policy, and they wanted to know where each candidate stands on each issue.
Our mission tonight is to educate, to engage, and energize all of you and encourage you to go to our website, www.conservative.ca, right now while you're watching, and join our party so that you can have a say.
Who the hell would
in our
want to
future.
join the Conservative
Many of
Party?
you have
Like,
engaged
honestly.
with us already, and thank you to all of our members who submitted questions for tonight. They were very helpful.
Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping for those here in Edmonton with us. When the candidates come on stage, feel free to cheer wildly. But after that, we ask you to please be silent during the debate so that we can get through a very busy agenda.
In the debate rules, we were very clear that there were to be no signs or noisemakers, and this is the one rule we really plan to.
Do they actually think that's going to happen? Like, bro, there's a bunch of fucking conservatives in here. Of course they're going to make noise. Like, there's no shot. There's no shot they're not going to make noise.
Enforce. So if anybody disrupts the room, you will be removed. So please, no clapping, booing, cheering, or jeering. Let's have a great evening tonight. It is now time to introduce our moderator. For the
They're
last
gonna go
7
wild.
years, he's
Hell
been
yeah.
the chair of
You
Global
know that
Public
they are.
Affairs, but for 45 years, he was a fixture in the living rooms of Canada as one of this country's most distinguished journalists. He's interviewed every prime minister since John Diefenbaker.
Please welcome Mr. Tom Clark.
Jeez, what is that? Leftist audio?
Thanks very much, Rick and Diane, and good evening, Edmonton. How are you? Terrific.
Who's this loser?
And in fact, good evening, Canada, because this event is being broadcast live right across the country by CBC and by CTV, so this is for everybody.
Go global?
I want to
What is
thank
this?
all of you to start off with, and of course the organizing committee for inviting me to participate in what is going to be a very important evening. And frankly, I don't know who was more courageous, them or me, but anyway, here we are. This is going to be a very big night for conservatives, obviously.
It's going to be a
For
fun
all of
night
you in the
tonight,
room,
boys.
Conservatives across the country, because you will have the opportunity to listen, to assess, and ultimately to judge who among these 6 candidates is the best one to lead the party into the future.
Like, at this point, what do the Conservatives have to lose? Like, honestly, they should just invite Derek Sloan to have a little bit of fun. Like, honestly, that would make this so much fun. I really hope that they did. Because if they did, it's just going to make it entertaining. That guy's a nut job.
I would also say that this is a very big night for Canadians everywhere in Canada, regardless of political stripe or affiliation, because good, healthy, informed, and yes, passionate debate is the very lifeblood of a good, healthy democracy. And therefore, everybody has a real stake in what happens on this stage tonight. So a couple of quick notes before we begin. I want to back up what Rick and Diane said. As they say in the theater business, please remain seated for the entire performance. No clapping, no booing, nothing.
You know that's not going to happen, my guy.
What will happen if you do. But honestly, tonight, let's just leave the stage to these 6 people. I think that's the right way to go. I'm going to be calling a pretty tight game tonight. There is going to be no mushiness on time. We're going to keep to a tight schedule. And also, I'm going to be expecting some pretty clear answers to some pretty clear questions, and I hope you are expecting the same. Final quick note, there are 5 distinct parts of this debate, and as we begin each part, I will be reminding the candidates of what the rules are, what the format is, and what the timing is, and through them, you'll be hearing the same thing. So you'll know at the beginning of each segment exactly where we're going to go and what we're going to be doing. Buckle up, everybody. Now,
Buckle up indeed. It's going to be
please
wild.
welcome your candidates for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada.
All right, let's see who the hogs are, boys. No. No, bro. That's fucking awesome. Oh my god.
There we go. Good evening, candidates. Everybody well?
Hasn't been 10 minutes and
I
we're
do believe this is
already
my
great. Stop with the leftist audio, Jesus. We're supposed to have shit audio.
Thank you so much. Okay. So, good evening. To remind you of what we are going to do right off the top, as you know, we gave you, in a sense, a little assignment before you came here. You've been working on this, no doubt diligently, for a couple of days now, but what we asked you to do was to finish this sentence. My vision for Canada is. You will have 45 seconds in which to tell us what your vision is, and but there's a twist.
Okay, so who do we think the Nazi is? Like, straight up, who do we think the Nazi is? Because, I mean, we got one last time.
And you know it. You can't mention any other candidate on the stage, and you can't mention any other federal leader. If you do, there's going to be trouble, and here's what you're going to hear.
Oh,
Now,
this is gonna be fun.
I will then, after you've done your segment, I will engage you. You have 30 seconds to engage with me, and then we'll move on. The draw has been done, and we are going to start this debate with Mr. Scott Aitchison. Mr. Aitchison, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My vision for Canada is to renew the promise that the next generation will be better off than today's. High grocery bills, a housing crisis, inflation, all make life harder. Millions of Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, and a Liberal government does little more than make inflation worse.
What?
This divisive
I
rhetoric
mean,
leaves millions of
he's not
Canadians
wrong
feeling
about
frustrated
that,
and even
but like,
demonized
the
by their own
conservatives are
government.
always
The
fucking
answer to today's
make things
challenges
worse.
is not to fan the flames of those frustrations and make Canadians more angry. Those politics of division have left you behind. You deserve leaders who care more about your success than our own. I seek to lead the Conservative Party and our team to form a government that delivers more than just photo ops, but real solutions to the challenges we face.
You're
Join
done.
me, and
Thanks.
we will build that future together.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Quick question to you. You were saying you want to take the politics of division out of the equation. How do you do that?
Repeat the question, please.
How do you take the politics of division out of the equation?
It's the divisive rhetoric that we need to take out of this,
Oh,
out of our
no.
discourse. And all parties are guilty of it. I'll give you the most obvious example, and I'm going to use the name of another party leader now because I think I'm allowed to. But if you look at the way the Prime Minister used vaccine
You literally
mandates
said that you can't,
and
though.
actually divided Canadians by demonizing one
Mr.
group over
Aitchison,
another,
you know the
that's
rules.
wrong.
You just broke them. We're moving on.
I have a feeling we're gonna hear that sound a lot tonight.
Roman Baber, your vision of Canada is?
Thank you. My name is Roman Baber. My vision for Canada is a return to being a credible democracy, that we don't censor people or speech, that we end 21st century segregation and let people make their own medical decisions.
I
that
think
we restore
I
Canadian
think we found the
kindness
Nazi
and
boys.
respect diversity of opinion. My vision for Canada is that we unleash our economic opportunity by making us a natural resources superpower. My vision for Canada is that we let Canadians work, love their families, and
He
that
broke the
government
rules. Moving on.
finally
That's a great
leave
line.
us
Hell yeah,
alone.
of course it is.
Thank you.
Quick question, and we're going to get into the debate, but Mr. Baby, you want to turn us, you
Mr.
want Canada
Baby.
to become an energy superpower in the world. In 30 seconds, tell me, how do you do that?
Yeah, so I think that our natural resources are a
Also,
blessing,
that
and I'm not
qualified
gonna
sound
let
is
oil
awesome.
and gas be
We're gonna hear it a
canceled.
lot tonight,
It's
so
good for our strategic
get used
interests,
to
for our economic
it.
bottom line, and it's also good for our planet, because Canadians can derive and clean and safe energy better than any other nation in the world.
Wait, what?
We need to work
Okay,
with our provinces.
that's not even true. Like on the global scale, though. Like if you want to actually compare it, like China does a way better job with green energy than we do. Like, granted, yes, they still use a lot of fossil fuels and shit, but their green energy and nuclear energy startups and everything have been significantly better.
We can restore the right balance, but that is the way out of the economic mess that we're in. I'm going to turn Canada into a natural resources superpower.
Sorry, Patrick Brown. My vision of Canada is.
My vision of Canada includes a Conservative Party that builds a broad, multi-faith, multicultural coalition that can win. We've lost 3 elections in a row, and we've forgotten how to win in areas like suburban Canada, in the GTA.
It's literally because you guys fucking suck ass. That's why. And like, NDP voters know how much you guys fucking suck. Because, I mean, to be fair, like, Harper was complete dog shit. So, of course, they're gonna be voting for, like, the blackface president over you guys. Like, he's way much more fucking progressive than you guys, even how fucking bad he is. Like, it's not even funny how much you guys are. Plus, like, you guys also had, like, you know, Aaron O'Toole literally saying Nazi shit, so there's that too.
Where I get elected. We'll never win with a divisive leader who repels voters and doubles down on discriminatory policies that trample over the religious freedoms of Canadians. The choice before the party is clear. Do we want an...
Did it work out? Sorry. Yeah, no, like I had said earlier, the my third nut turned out to be potentially one of the glands for my hair, or one of the oil glands for my hair being inflated, but I'm not too sure, so I'm gonna be getting an ultrasound in the next 2 3 so
unelectable party leader who drives voters away, walks straight into liberal traps, giving unclear answers on divisive issues like abortion, and wedges Conservatives against each other. Are we ready to
Wait,
win?
what? But that's actually kind of funny though. Like, the wedge issues that Conservatives face are actually like hilarious. Sounds stressful. Yeah, it's a little bit stressful. But at least it's not cancer, so good. At least as far as I know.
I'm Mayor Patrick Brown, and I'm ready to win, and we need your help.
Now, I just want to remind the audience, you're all crossing a red line here, so you want to be careful. Just let me pick up.
What did I
Patrick,
say? I
talking
told
about,
you that they
like
were going to
Mr.
do
H
that.
said, the politics of division. You skated pretty close to mentioning the name of somebody on here, which you know was against the rules, so that's fine. But how do you take suburban Canada and make it conservative blue with the background that you've been talking about and the failures of the past?
You know, I look at suburban Canada, it's a mosaic of the country. And I truly believe, and I've shown, you can convince residents who have traditionally voted for other parties that their values are our values, conservative values. I've seen that in Brampton, I've seen that across the GTA. So it's really about building those relationships and telling our story, that we're the party that will fight to make sure we don't spend beyond our means, balance budgets, and fight for every Canadian. And that's key. We need to send a message. We'll fight for every Canadian, no matter their walk of life.
Wait, what? That's not even true.
Thank you very much. Mr. Polyev, your vision of Canada
is one where you, the citizens, are masters and your government is servant. It is one where people have the freedom to take back control of their lives. That means freedom from inflation.
Hell yeah,
The
brother.
hardworking single mothers can afford nutritious food for their kids. Freedom from inflation so that 32-year-olds don't have to live in their parents' basements, that they can actually afford their own homes.
But I like having chicken
Freedom from
tendies,
inflation
my
and carbon
guy. You're
taxes
taking away my
that have
fucking
made it
chicken tendies? How
unaffordable
dare you?
for working people to fill their trucks with gas. The freedom to speak without fear and censorship, and the freedom to make your own medical decisions. In other words, the freedom to
Oh
be
my
master
God.
of your own destiny and a captain of your own life. Thank you.
Folks, here's the deal, supporters of any candidate. The time that you cheer is going to be taken away from your candidate. Just so you know, that's the way the deal works. Mr. Polyev,
They're gonna cheer so much, it's not even gonna fucking matter. And like, the less these losers have to talk, honestly, the better. Because Derek Sloan isn't here, so it's gonna be fucking boring. Like, Derek Sloan would have actually made things entertaining.
you talked about inflation and freedom from inflation. How many years is it going to take you to bring inflation down to what, 1% or 0%?
Well, it's hard to say
Never.
how high it
It's
will be
never
when I
gonna
take
happen.
office. But there's no question that we have to hold those accountable who've caused it. Money printing, government deficits have caused more dollars chasing fewer goods, driving higher prices, and the Bank of Canada governor has allowed himself to become the ATM machine of this government. And so I would replace him with a new governor who would reinstate our low inflation mandate, protect the purchasing power of our dollar, and honor the working people who earn those dollars.
But yeah, you guys literally end up hurting the working class, though.
Okay. I
More
have a
than any
feeling
other
we'll be getting
party.
back to that point you made in a minute. Dr. Leslyn Lewis, your vision.
My vision for Canada is to once again make Canada a beacon of hope and opportunity.
She's gonna lose, by the way.
For all. A nation where we respect our charter.
There's no shot
and where
she's gonna
our
win.
government never has the opportunity to freeze our bank accounts without a court order. National unity is at an all-time low. Many people have been traumatized by COVID lockdowns and government mandates. I'm running to be a bridge builder, to unite the party and to unite the country. Business owners will have the confidence to take chances again. We will develop our natural resources while protecting the environment without a carbon tax. We will respect freedoms and uphold our Charter of Rights. I'm running to make Canada one of the freest and most
Dr. Lewis,
prosperous
you're out
country in the world.
you're out of time. Let me quickly pick up on one thing that you said. You said that we have never been so divided, or national unity has never been so challenged. What are you basing that on?
Ooh, that's a good question.
If we look at the last 2 years, we have seen families torn apart by COVID. We see parents not talking to children. We've seen a government that has pit Canadians against each other. There are
what?
millions of people who cannot
That's not even true, though. Like, yeah, the liberals fucking suck, but that's not even true.
travel in their own country, people who are unemployed. The government has used COVID to divide Canadians, and it's time for us to heal.
The only people that it actually is, okay, like, the only people who it has actually, like, divided are, like, fucking, like, pop dads and their, like, dumbass liberal children. Because, you know, they're tired of hearing their fucking pop dad being like, oh, COVID's a conspiracy theory made up by the Chinese or some shit like that. Like, that's the only people who have actually been divided by COVID. like for the most part, Canada has done a relatively good job, especially in wave 1 when it came to COVID. I mean, like, this last year has been kind of dog shit because of all the fucking political issues, like the convoy clowns that were in Ottawa on in February. But and we made fun of them. That's mostly who it's
folks,
been.
I've really got to. I don't want to stop the debate, but we will, if necessary. You've been asked a number of times now. Please don't do that.
Bro, they're
So I'm asking
conservatives.
you
They
once
don't give a
again,
shit.
Please don't do that, or your candidate will get penalized. Finally, Jean Charest, your vision of Canada is.
Oh my god!
Well, thank you very
never
much.
seen.
First, let
I've
me
never
say how
seen a
delighted
more
I am.
electable conservative candidate than this old fuck right here. Like to be real, I've never seen someone more electable as a conservative candidate.
To be here in Edmonton, Alberta, and to join with my fellow candidates on this stage. You're asking the fundamental question of this leadership campaign, and the reason I'm running is because I see a country that is deeply divided. And I am running because I believe that national unity is the #1 challenge of any prime minister in this country. That nothing big, nothing of substance gets done unless we're able to bridge the country between the East and the West. And that's what I've done all my life. It's what I fought for. And that's what the Conservative Party needs to be about in the next election campaign.
I think this guy's going to win.
Vision.
Let me just pick up on one thing that you said. You're talking about East and West. You know, in the battles gone by, it was always Quebec and is Quebec in or is Quebec out. How much of the East is about Quebec and that national unity piece is about Quebec?
It isn't just about one province. It can never be about just one province. It's about the whole country, Tom. And you know, on issues like energy, for example, whether it's oil, gas, or pipelines, or mining, we as a country
Are they
need
still
a national
crying about
leader
the
who is going
pipeline?
to stand
Like,
up for the
geez.
resource industry. When have we ever heard the Prime Minister say, I believe in this project. I think it should happen. And yes, please, I'm delighted to name him, but if you want me to.
You heard that.
I did.
You broke the
my-
rules.
Well, and I did it
Anyway,
deliberately.
Bro,
Thank you.
he's a conservative. He doesn't give a shit
We're
about
moving
that.
on to the second section of the debate now, and let me just quickly remind the candidates of what this is all about. We are asking you a series of rapid-fire questions on a number of policy issues, and we're looking for a yes or no. The question will be very clear. There will be no doubt about the yes or no answer, but there's also 15 seconds right away for you to expand a little bit or qualify your yes or no if you wish. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. Once everybody is answered, I will choose two of the candidates who perhaps have opposing views and query it a little bit more and let you talk a little bit, and we will be moving on. The draw has been done for this as well, and I'm just looking for how much time you've got here. 15 seconds, then 30 seconds when we come back when I pull the two people out. Okay. Rapid fire question. Here we go, and we're starting with Dr. Lewis, and then we'll work down the line from there. Dr. Lewis, the war in Ukraine, as we all know, has been an unspeakable tragedy, and it continues as we speak tonight. Carnage and destruction are unimaginable. Do you support creating a no-fly zone over Ukraine?
No.
The attack on Ukraine should be taken seriously. We have to ensure that we do not.
If a no-fly zone is instituted, I'm sorry, that's nuclear holocaust. And if the only right answer here is no. If anyone else says yes, they just want you to die. Just keep that in mind.
Exacerbate the tensions that are already there.
Is that a no?
Oh, that's right. No.
No. Thank you very much. Moving on. Mr. Beber.
Yeah, she's definitely not going to be the candidate.
My mother's family is from Ukraine. I'm heartbroken. We're witnessing a catastrophic loss of life and infrastructure. There needs to be a greater effort to end the conflict. Escalation will not get us out of it. The only way to end it is to bring the sides to a ceasefire.
Then
Mr.
push
Charest.
Brandon to
We could
do
only
it,
do
my
that
guy.
if our NATO allies agreed. Canada can't do that alone. We all admit that. What we need to do in Ukraine is three things. Lethal weapons for Ukraine. That's what they need, and that's what Canada should do more of. More aid and bringing Ukrainians who want to come to Canada here in this country so that they're secure.
Oh, okay. He just fucked up hard. He lost. I'm sorry, he lost. He's not gonna be the candidate. I know for a fact he's not gonna be a candidate now.
Not sure whether that was a yes or a no.
It's a no. If our
Okay, it's a no.
allies are not there, Tom, we can't do it.
Mr. Aitchison.
No, and I'll build on what Mr. Charest said. Part of the problem, of course, is that we've never met the 2% of our GDP in terms of military funding to meet our commitments to NATO. Canada's not a reliable partner in the world, and we need to do a lot better than we are.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, I believe Canada should push and actively advocate and be part of it to show that NATO is serious about these encroachments. We need to stand steadfast with our allies in Ukraine.
Mr. Polyev.
No, but I believe we should provide more lethal weapons to our Ukrainian allies and offer refuge to Ukrainians who are fleeing. We also need to unleash Canadian energy production so that we can help break European dependence on Putin.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to go with Patrick Brown and Mr. Polyev on this because you have opposing views. Mr. Brown, you said that we should encourage and participate in a no-fly zone over Ukraine. You, Mr. Polyev, say no. So, Mr. Brown, let me ask you about the concerns that people have about escalating a war by doing such a thing as a no-fly zone, which would require offensive fire against, for example, radar stations and installations.
Well, I certainly don't believe we should abandon our allies, and the pleas from Ukraine need more than promises and best wishes. We are seeing an encroachment in Europe that has not been seen in the modern era, and we need to make sure they know that Canada stands with them more than our wishes and photo ops with the Prime Minister showing up in Ukraine. We need to give them all the support they've asked for, which includes, and that's the request from Ukraine.
And Mr. Polyev, if I could just play off of that, you say no, and yet it's the very thing that the Ukrainian government has asked for over and over again, the no-fly zone.
Right. The reason is that if we bring in a no-fly zone, it could very quickly escalate to Canada being in a war with Russia. And I'm not standing on the stage today promising to declare that war. I'm making the responsible position that we'll provide the material support necessary that we can as Canadians, both to the population and to those fighting against the Russians, but also do what we can strategically to provide Europe with an alternative source of energy so that the Europeans no longer have to fund Russia's war with machine by buying all of its oil and gas.
Thank you very much, both of you.
I wonder what we could do in order to substitute the oil and gas that we get from Russia. Oil and gas imports in general. About that.
Next question, Mr. Baber, it goes to you. Way back in the 1970s, you may not be able to remember that, but nevertheless, ancient history. But Pierre Trudeau brought in supply management, basically a state-run system to manage dairy and poultry industries in this country, setting huge tariffs for foreign products and in the process inflating prices here at home. Do you support the current supply management system? Yes or no?
No, there's no free country when you have centrally planned economy. Instead of protecting supply management and central Politburo planning, we should not cap how much dairy Canadians may produce. It's utter nonsense. I oppose supply management.
Okay, honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I don't like it because it when it comes to the dairy and poultry, yeah, it does create a shit ton of inflation in that area, but at the same time I understand that you want to support Canadian grown or Canadian farmers as well. I kind of get that, but at the same time it's kind of ridiculous just how expensive all that shit is.
Mr. Charest.
I fully support supply management. I always have. And in this era of supply chains that are disrupted, this is, in fact, a policy that guarantees us access to food that we need. So I unequivocally support supply management.
No, I don't. In fact, supply management costs the average Canadian family about $600 a year. I think it's important in an affordability crisis that we actually help Canadians make food cheaper to eat. That's the problem with supply management. It's costing too much for Canadians.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Yes, the party has a history of supporting supply management, but I think it's fair in this affordability crisis to have a broader consultation with our membership.
Mr. Polyev.
I do support supply management. The alternative would be to buy out the quota, and that would cost
Okay, he's won.
10, 20, $30 billion.
He's the candidate.
And that would have to be done through a tax
There's
on
no shot he's
consumers,
not.
which could be more expensive than the alternative. We should lower food costs by getting rid of the carbon tax and other
Okay,
taxes
you're-
that are driving up
We're
the
out.
cost
We're
of
out.
food.
Yeah, he's
Mr. Aitchison
going to be the
and-
candidate.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Lewis.
And then he's going to
My
lose to
apologies. Supply
a
management.
I
blackface
do
liberal.
support supply management. Our dairy and egg producers give us superior products. Without supply management, our industry would be overrun by U.S. producers. I prefer to have a superior product that we'll pay a little bit more for, and if we want to bring down the price, cut the carbon tax.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Baber and you, Dr. Lewis, because you hold opposing views on this. Mr. Baber, why don't you tell Dr. Lewis exactly why it is that we should not have supply management and perhaps, as the critics of your position would say, put those industries into jeopardy?
So one of the themes today is cost of living. At a time when cost of living is so high, visit a grocery store. Life is becoming unaffordable. Why not to increase more supply instead of telling farmers how much milk they can produce? We should encourage the creation of more goods, especially if we're worried about inflation. But I support a gradual...
But that's not the problem, though. The problem is distribution. Like, we already produce more than enough. And, like, even if we were to sell it at, like, a cheaper price, like, the farmers or whoever would still be able to make profit. So that doesn't even matter. But the main problem is distribution. So you got to solve that problem first.
phasing out of supply management because yes, we do have quotas and we have concessions that people bought. We have to provide
Sounds likely. Yeah, it honestly does.
them with some ease down, but we should not cap how much Canadians can produce.
Okay. And Dr. Lewis, critics of your position might say, what is a conservative doing supporting the policies of Pierre Trudeau on a state-imposed mechanism?
Well, from a free market perspective, supply management, of course, is not a free market ideology.
Found the free
However,
market, Andy,
we have
guys.
to ensure that we support our farmers, and we have to ensure that Canadians get the best product on their table. If we want to cut costs, we can cut the carbon tax, and that is what is bringing up the cost of food for Canadians.
Thank you very much, both of you. Mr. Charest, you get the first swing at this next question. As we've seen in the United States in the last couple of weeks, there are no laws around abortion.
Let's go,
Abortion
Brandon.
is only allowed by the Supreme Court decision known as Roe versus Wade. And courts, as we are seeing, can change their minds. In Canada, we don't have any laws either on this. We depend on the Morgentaler case, which essentially decided that it was not illegal. So the question is this: would you support legislation around abortion?
I am pro-choice, and my government would
Oh,
not bring
that's-
in legislation
that's gonna
or
hurt him even
support
more.
legislation to change or to restrain the rights of women. The situation we have now is what we should maintain, and that is a very clear. They're all candidates except one on this stage has stated their position on this.
Mr. Aitchison.
I will always defend a woman's right to her personal reproductive health choices, period. Always.
Okay, whichever one says
Thanks,
that
sir.
they're pro-life,
Mr. Brown.
he's going to be
I'm
the candidate.
pro-choice. I support a woman's right to choose, and any government that I lead would not revisit this issue.
Mr. Polyev.
A Polyev government would not introduce or pass legislation restricting abortion.
Okay, that's actually kind of
Dr.
surprising coming from him.
I am pro-life.
Oh, there it is.
Women in
Yay, brother.
Women in Canada
Yay,
can
yay.
have an abortion up until 9 months. And so there is no restriction on abortion. What we need to do is have conversations about what we believe in,
Thanks.
what we
We're out
agree
of
on.
time. Mr. Baber.
I
Oh
don't
my.
believe that government has a role in how people start and grow their families. If as conservatives want to stay out of people's lives, then we should stay out of the most intimate areas of their lives. But that doesn't mean that we don't respect parliamentary democracy, that we gag our MPs, that we don't allow people to contest nomination. I'm wondering how all my friends feel about others in caucus who have different views.
Okay. Let's just further explore this a little bit. Mr. Charest, I want to start with you, and Mr. Aitchison, I want to bring you into the conversation as well. You say
Shut her down fast. Yeah, it was kind of
the
crazy.
question of a law around abortion as restricting it. What if it was a law enshrining it?
Well, it's not what's anticipated. I mean, it's clearly not the case. But on this issue, can we be clear on one thing? Every candidate in this race
I swear
needs to
conservatives
tell the women
have
of Canada where they
worse
stand,
audio
whether
than
they're pro
leftists at
or
this
against.
point. Jesus.
The women of Canada deserve to know where they stand. And Mr. Poilievre's answer, quite frankly, does not fit that test.
Okay.
He literally got
we will be
fucking
taking 10
booed.
seconds away from Mr. Poilievre, but Mr.
That's
Aitchison, get in.
awesome.
I think that
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, Mr. Aitchison, please go ahead.
I think it's important for us to always be respectful of each other. There are really strong views and deeply held beliefs on this issue. And this is one of the problems that I see in our party today. We've become factions, and we don't listen to each other and respect each other as we debate ideas and differing opinions. Then Canadians will never trust us. And so this, to me, is about respect, and really, I don't see a lot of that, unfortunately, on this issue.
Right, thank you very much. Next question, Mr. Aitchison, we're going to start with you. Last year, Canada took in more immigrants than at any other time in our history, doubling the usual number of about 250,000, and we're planning to increase
That's it, bro?
that number even more.
That's it?
So looking at the latest
That's
numbers
nothing.
of around just over 400,000, is 400,000 or a little bit more the right number to be bringing in every year into Canada?
Well, this much I know, we need more Canadians. We need more workers. We need more
Oh,
skilled workers in our
Papela.
economy. It's one of the reasons we have a housing shortage in this country. We need
That's not even
200,000 skilled tradespeople in this
that's
country.
not even true, bro. We don't have a housing shortage. We have plenty of houses. It's, you know, fucking rich fuckers like you who are like who want their fucking, I don't know, duplex as high as it can be. When, you know, we have fellow brothers and sisters dying on the streets because you care about the market value of whatever your fucking duplex is. Like, who cares, honestly? I think that, you know, those people who are dying on the streets because they can't find adequate shelter is a little bit more important than the price of your fucking duplex.
Today. So we need more workers, whether 400,000 is the precise number or not. It should be targeted, though.
Mr. Brown.
No, it's not enough. We're not meeting our skilled labor shortage, not even close. And the backlog right now under under the current Prime Minister is the largest it's been in Canadian history. He's not properly resourcing our immigration department. It's been an
I'm
abysmal
glad
failure.
we decided to watch this.
Mr. Poilievre.
We need the workforce, frankly, but when we bring immigrants here, we need to make sure they have the freedom to own a home by getting rid of the gatekeepers that prevent housing construction, and the freedom to work in their field by getting rid of the gatekeepers that prevent them from getting licenses in their professions and trades. So I will get rid of those gatekeepers and give them that opportunity.
Dr. Lewis.
The issue is not about quantity, it's about quality. We need to make sure that we bring immigrants here who can contribute to our society.
No, I think I was wrong about the other guy. I think Dr. Lewis is the Nazi.
5 years old, and we need a compassionate immigration
I mean, for all
system
I
that
know,
will
he could be
have
one too.
jobs for people.
All right, thank you. Mr. Babe.
I'm an immigrant to Canada, and I had every blessing our country has to offer. And I think that Canada's multiculturalism is beautiful. We have an aging demographic, a shrinking labor force. We need to encourage lawful immigration. Democracy and opportunity is why immigrants come to Canada.
Bro, who
Those are
cares how they
conservative
get here?
Mr. Charest.
Honestly.
400,000 may be within the right zone, but it is very much dependent on our ability to integrate people. And how do we integrate? We integrate through a job. We integrate through language. We integrate by allowing people to integrate into communities. And credentials is one of the key elements to integrate Canadians.
Let's pick that up. Mr. Brown, I want to just explore a little bit more of your thinking. 400,000, 405,000. It's a record number for this country, but should it be 500,000, 600,000? We know that we've got a labor shortage. What's the right number?
You know, I was speaking to a friend of mine, Joseph Mancinelli, who's the head of LIUNA Canada, and he told me today, just today, they're short 30,000 workers. And these are in the skilled trades, great jobs, good paying jobs. And you could change the education system.
I can almost guarantee that they're low-paying minimum wage jobs. I can almost guarantee it. And he just has a rich buddy who's crying because he can't keep any laborers that want to work a shit job for, you know, shit pay.
But that takes, 10 years in terms of creating a new stream of workers in the skilled trades. We need that immigration. We need that talent right now. There are jobs that they can't build. Houses we can't build. Bridges we can't build.
Not true.
Because of the lack of labor. We need to unleash the Canadian economic potential through immigration.
Yeah,
Thank you
he
very much.
lost.
We're going to move on to the next question now. Mr. Brown, this goes to you, actually. In 2014, at a NATO summit in Wales, the Canadian government, led then by then Prime Minister Stephen Harper, promised to spend 2% of our GDP on national defense. Since then, as you know, we haven't even come close. With a war on Europe's doorstep right now, and with our vast northern regions now vulnerable, would you meet the pledge of 2% that is our NATO commitment?
Yes, absolutely.
Who gives a shit about
Frankly,
the NATO
we're not
commitment,
taken
honestly?
seriously on a world stage when we can't even meet the obligations that we've committed to. And it's not just about a peacekeeping role abroad, it's about our own sovereignty, the Arctic. And so 100%.
Mr. Poilievre.
Bro, when have you guys
We need to
ever
work towards
cared
hitting
about the
that
fucking
goal,
Arctic?
And we need also to make sure the money we spent gets results. Right now, too much of the procurement of equipment is tied up in politics and political favoritism. That's why billions of dollars have wasted, and products are not delivered to the front line for our soldiers, sailors, and airmen. So not only will we increase it, we will spend it well.
Unfortunately, we have not invested enough in our military. Yes, I would commit to meeting that 2%. Right now, we are underfunded, and that is one of the reasons why we have not been
literally
able to supply
every
the
facet
needs
of
that
Canadian
Ukraine
economics
could
is
use
underfacet.
to assist them.
Mr. Baber.
So that doesn't even
We
matter.
need to increase our defense spending by 50% in order to meet our NATO commitment. If we're going to ask men and women in uniform to risk their lives, then they must have the best equipment and the best training. But I believe that our defense policy...
I kind of wonder what these guys think about, like, all the fucking sexual harassment allegations coming out of the military right now. I'm kind of curious, because either way, like, their views on it is going to be dog shit. But I think it would be funny if they talked about that during the debate. It won't happen, obviously, but I think it'd be fucking hilarious.
should be limited to safeguarding our country and meeting our treaty commitments.
Thanks very much. Mr. Charest.
Well, the answer is yes. This is an issue of sovereignty for Canada, and I put out a defense policy that's very detailed. One thing that I think we need to do urgently is assume our sovereignty in the Arctic. And I would open 2 bases in the Arctic, one with a deep sea water port to defend our sovereignty against Russia in particular.
Guy's fucking crazy. It's awesome.
Yes. The sad reality of this is that our military procurement system has become a joke in the world, and we waste money, and we don't have the right equipment for our men and women in service. And our partners, our allies, are making new alliances without us because we're not a reliable partner.
Mr. Poilievre,
Like
I
who?
just want to dig a little bit deeper into your answer. You said that we should work towards it, so not necessarily meeting it. But as you know, this is one of the main irritants in Canada-U.S. relations, regardless of the administration. When you say work towards it, have you got a time frame in mind as to when we get to 2%?
Look, it will take a progressive move because it's roughly an extra $14 or $15 billion a year. If you up the budget in 1 year, well, then you're going to have a bunch of bureaucrats at the Defense Department trying to shovel the cash out the door without getting proper results. In fact, they can't spend the budgets they have right now and get results.
That's not true.
So I will
easily
increase
do
it
it
as fast as we possibly can within the confines of our costed budget and towards putting those dollars into getting results for our soldiers, sailors, and airmen.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Baber, I want to come back to you on this because you have a slightly different view as to what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think that Canada's credibility in the world is eroded right now because some countries don't believe we're an actual democracy anymore. And so we need to focus on
Bro,
resolving our
literally
issues
the
at home
only person
while
I've
increasing
actually
our
heard say
NATO
that is
commitment,
like fucking white
to meet our
supremacists
NATO
and
commitment, that's about
Nazis.
50%. But we should
Like,
not go
what?
beyond
What is he
our treaty
saying?
commitments at this point. I appreciate the role that Canada played traditionally in peacekeeping, but now it's time for other countries to step up and take the lead. God knows we have enough problems at home at this moment.
Thank you all very much. We're going to go to the final question now. It's Mr. Polyev. Mr. Polyev, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission presented its final report in 2015. That is 7 years ago, and it contained 94 recommendations. Would you make a commitment to implementing all 94 recommendations?
I can't make the commitment to 100% of the recommendations, but what I can is to address the structural unfairness that leads to the injustice, and that
No,
is
you
fundamentally
won't.
in the Indian Act. We have to give First Nations communities control of their money, their land, and their resources. That is the only way that they will be able to have prosperity.
Except that the fucking liberals haven't even done that, so there's no shot that you guys are gonna actually do that. And fuck, like, the liberals love painting that, you know, they're pro fucking indigenous. Like, fuck, they have, like, they've recently just like shoved some indigenous person into somewhere, which honestly, I honestly don't think they're qualified, to be honest, but it doesn't matter because, you know, they're indigenous, so it's okay, I guess, right? Like, honestly, it was just a reaction from the indigenous communities being like, you know, we don't have any say in this country, and everything. So it looks the liberals wanted to make it look like they were doing just to try and shut us.
And paychecks
Okay.
for their people.
Dr. Lewis.
We need to make sure that First Nations people are at the table where the decisions are being made. And we also need to make sure that we keep our promises. We have been promising year after year clean water on reserves, and we have not delivered. If we cannot
Thank you.
deliver on
That's
simple
good. Mr.
promises.
Baber.
We have to be honest and learn our history so we don't repeat it. But dividing Canadians is actually hurting reconciliation. The best thing we can do.
Girls always want to make themselves look better. I mean, yeah, but when your opponents are like on the right are like slightly better, or not the right, sorry, the left, slightly better, like Singh, and your opponents on the right, like the Conservatives and the PPC, are just like lunatics, of course they're gonna try and make themselves look better, but it doesn't matter because Justin Trudeau's a pretty boy, so that's why he stays elected. Speed of which he shuts her down. I mean, we should have got that. Well, no, I actually found the 2020 presidential debate really fucking funny. So I'm actually kind of glad that they had a shit moderator for that. It's so funny.
For reconciliation is to improve the lives of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you. And Mr. Charest, just in case people forgot, the question is, would you commit to the 94 recommendations in the Truth and Reconciliation report?
Well, the 94 recommendations, you can't commit to all of them. But Tom, Indigenous
Why not?
Canadians deserve respect, and a lot better than virtue signaling and false promises. They should be part of our resource economy. They should own equity. And I would put together a crown corporation that would allow them to own equity.
Okay. Dr. Lewis, I just want to come back to you because I didn't hear whether you were going to support all 94 recommendations, but can you tell me if you're not going to support all...
I didn't get a chance.
I didn't know you were here. I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry.
Don't, he's going to take time away from me. Stop.
No, yeah.
This is fucking awesome.
Mr. Atchison, my apologies, please.
My answer is yes, I would. But I would also make sure we eliminate all boil water advisors. I would expedite the installation
Wait,
of
what?
broadband internet. And
Why would you get rid of that? Like, the only reason why they have a boil water advisory is because of how dog shit their living conditions are. And, like, most of them don't even boil their water. They end up getting, like, cases and jugs of bottled water. Like, the only thing that they actually use it for is, like, possibly cooking, showering, stuff like that. Like, I know what you do when, you don't have clean water. You like the basic stuff, and then you get balls of water and shit.
My approach to reconciliation is a journey, but it will be about fewer conferences in Ottawa and more action on the ground.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
Yes, having a strong collaborative relationship with Indigenous communities will be essential if we are committed to building pipelines in this country. We need to have that strong collaboration. We need to get pipelines built. We need to create
why is he
prosperity
so horny
in
about
Indigenous communities and
pipelines?
across the country.
Okay, and I just want to bring you and Dr. Lewis in because there was just one thing I didn't quite understand. Would you, Dr. Lewis, implement all 94 recommendations?
I will implement any recommendation that uplifts the lives of Indigenous people. We have let them down. Even our missing and murdered Aboriginal women, we have not committed to even dealing with that issue, which is a fundamental issue that affects the core of the society on reserves.
Okay.
It doesn't really
Mr.
answer his
Brown,
question.
If we don't implement all 94, what ones would we not implement of the 94? Choose one that you would not implement.
Well, my answer was that I would support the recommendation. So I said yes, and I believe it's integral for us to have that strong collaboration.
There's no shot he knows all 94 of them.
Prosperity through the construction of a national energy corridor and pipelines. I just don't see how you can build partnerships with Indigenous communities to get pipelines built if you ignore the recommendations that are so important to Indigenous communities across the country.
Okay, then just move away
Thank you
from
all very
gas
much
and oil.
for
It's
that.
simple.
That ends this section of the spontaneous yes or no answers. We are now moving towards the what we call the lightning round. Now, let me explain. You have been informed of this. Believe it or not, there are Canadians who don't know you guys and Dr. Lewis yet. So this is a chance just to get to know.
Okay, so for context, the only people that I actually knew was Dr. Lewis because of how nuts she is, and Pierre because he seems like he's gonna. All these other losers, I have no idea who they are.
A little bit about who you are and character and likes, dislikes, and that sort of thing. I'm going to ask everybody the same question. We're just going to go down the line. Everybody gets a chance. It's a very fast answer. You'll see that these things are, you got 15 seconds to answer this, and we're going to be starting with Mr. Charest. And Mr. Charest, the very first question I have for you is, what book are you reading now?
What
Book are you reading now?
I was reading the most recent book that I've been reading has been about Russia, and I forget the title right now, but it's been about Russia.
Very good. Mr. H.
All right,
I'm actually reading.
I'm convinced at this point he's a Russian spy. Like, there's no shot he's not, right? Like, he has to be.
Book that Dennis Mills, former member of Parliament for Toronto Danforth, gave me on water.
Just a
Do you remember
Russian
the
spy
title?
grifter.
Water.
Oh, it's called Water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, would you like to know what it's about?
Okay.
It's about water.
yeah. I get it.
It's about the future of water and the importance of water in geopolitical issues. Anyhow.
Mr.
Yeah,
Brown?
instead of what he's referring to is, instead of the wars being based around oil, it's going to be based around water. So basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to be going over to the third world and fucking them up even more, and taking their fucking water instead of their oil. Because apparently we don't know how to actually fucking horses. North America's the dumbest country. Definitely spy. I mean, there's no shot that he's not, right? Like, he has said everything that makes conservatives mad. So there's no shot he's not a spy. I'm sorry, there's just no shot.
What are you reading these days?
Well, I'd say on a leadership campaign, let's be honest, there's no time to be laying around reading books. But historically, I've loved, legal
I don't even know
novels,
if he
the John
can
Grisham
read.
books. Growing up, I loved Horatio Alger, the rags to riches stories, which is, our Canadian dream.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to
Are you
read.
having time to read these days?
Well, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules.
Oh no!
Great book.
No! Oh no, he did not just say that. Yeah, that's the candidate there, boys. Oh fuck. I bet a lot of fucking Peterson heads fucking popped off of that, and like a bunch of the Ben Shapiro losers too.
And a lot of good lessons. We all need to improve ourselves, and I think he has a lot of good wisdom in that book that could help anybody.
Like what? Fucking his grandma?
Dr. Lewis.
Shackleton's Way, it's about sacrificial leadership. It's about lending yourself to service for others and being a leader that people can admire and aspire to.
Thank you, Mr. Baber.
It's been difficult since the leadership started, but before that, a friend suggested that I read David and Goliath. And that's been a theme that throughout our campaign, we continue to exceed expectations. Sometimes people might surprise you, and you might have an unlikely result.
Mr. Aitchison, I wanted to ask you and give everybody a
Who the
chance,
fuck reads David and
question, and
Goliath
there's a twist
and gives that
to
an
the
answer?
I want to know who your
Like what?
political hero is, and you cannot say Winston Churchill.
He does look like a Winston
Prime
Churchill
Minister
supporter.
Diefenbaker.
Oh no. Really?
Prime Minister Diefenbaker, he was a tremendous orator. He brought us the Bill of Rights. He was an amazing Canadian who defended Canadians' freedoms and enshrined them in law.
Mr. Brown.
Absolutely. Former Premier Bill Davis. I felt he radiated decency. I learned more from him than anyone else. He lived only a few doors down from me in Brampton, Ontario. And I think his legacy is one that is enormous in our country.
Mr. Polyev.
Well, Wilfrid Laurier. He opened up the West to immigration. It brought many of my ancestors here. Though he was a Catholic, he made a point of reading a Protestant Bible so he could understand the other side. He said that he used to pick fights with the Scottish boys and flirt with the Scottish girls and managed to bring all the Canadian nations together into this wonderful country we call Canada based on the principle of freedom.
Thank you. Dr. Lewis.
Point of clarification, did it have to be Canadian? I didn't hear.
Just your political hero, as long as it's not Winston Churchill.
William Wilberforce. He spent his life fighting for the abolition of slavery, even though he never knew whether or not he would see that materialize. But he had convictions to stand up for what he believed in, and he did not matter if it sacrificed his political career.
All very boring answers, to be honest. Like, I expected something way much more fun than that. Like, where's my fucking thick daddy Trump, man? Like I know for a fact a lot of these people love Trump. There's no shot that they don't.
Thanks very much, Mr. Baber.
Like, just say that you like
Margaret
him because
Thatcher.
he had a thick
We will
dumpy and
either
that's
stand on
it.
principles, or we will not stand at all. She was not afraid of making difficult decisions. She stood up to the radical left-wing mob. This is something that I hope we're going to restore to the Conservative Party of Canada. Courage to say what we believe and do what we believe is right.
Hell yeah, brother,
Mr.
get those PPC
Darcy
voters
McGee,
back.
Born in Ireland, went to the United States, chose to come to Canada, renounced Irish nationalism, and gave his life for his country because he was assassinated, one of the only political assassinations in the country, by Fenians.
Thank you all very much. That was actually really interesting to hear all that. Dr. Lewis, I'm going to start with you, and then, of course, everybody else gets a chance. I know you're all busy. I know that you've got stuff that you're doing right now, but when you have the opportunity to sit down and listen to some music, what do you listen to?
I would say probably jazz is my go-to.
Who's your favorite jazz artist?
Coltrane.
Cool. Okay. Mr. Baber.
Amy Winehouse. When I hear Amy Winehouse, I can see into her soul. She speaks to issues of addiction and mental health, something that people know that I'm very, very passionate about. And she left us too early. But yeah, Amy Winehouse, Back to Black.
Okay. Mr. Charest.
Well, for jazz, Pat Metheny, but my family and I are also great lovers of Charles Aznavour.
There we go. Mr. Aitchison.
Well, I play the piano, so I love to listen to Oscar Peterson. But since my assistant Parker has been driving around with me, I'm starting to listen to a little more country music, so I'm learning a bit more about that.
Okay.
He's trying so
I
hard.
think I have to say Alessia Cara, because I'm from Brampton, and Alessia Cara is our most famous musician right now. But I should also say MIA. We're trying to get them for our Canada Day party. A great story of overcoming adversity.
Terrific. And Mr. Polyev.
Well, pick a local hero, Paul Brandt, Alberta Brown. You got to let them applaud that, Tom. Come on.
Okay. I'll allow the applause because it's for Paul Brandt. Okay?
No one else.
You'll have to take it off his time.
Yeah, I'll take it off his time, yeah. Mr. Brown, I want to start with you. What do you think is, and remember 15 seconds, okay? What do you think is the single biggest threat to Canada today?
Our financial chaos right now. We're $1.2 trillion in debt, and if you allow the finances to get out of control of the country, you lose all capacity to deal with the challenges in your country. 1.2 trillion, $2 billion a month in interest.
Okay,
Thank you
like,
very much.
honestly, who gives a shit on how much money we're in debt? Like, the fuck cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you could, like, I hear the same shit over and over from them. It's like, care? Why? Why does it matter? It literally doesn't matter. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you want to have lower taxes anyways, because regardless if it's one of these clowns that get elected, or even like if the liberals stay in power, taxes are still going to go up regardless on the proletariat, so it doesn't matter. If you want lower taxes, you should be having the fucking richest people on the planet, or the richest people in Canada paying a shit ton more taxes. That is what will lower your taxes. Electing these losers will not.
Polyev.
Well, I would build on that. It's not just the 1.2 trillion federal, but the other 1+ trillion provincial, and then the
That's not true. Lower spending does not equal lower taxes.
other $7 trillion of private debt that is about to collide with higher interest rates. The government and the central bank have set us up for a massive debt crisis, and we don't have time to avoid it.
Thank you. Dr. Lewis.
I think our declining democracy, people have lost trust and confidence in our democracy. The invocation of the Emergency Measures Act and freezing of people's accounts without a court order has led people to question our institutions, such as the media and our political institutions.
Thank you. Mr. Baber.
100% with Dr. Lewis. The erosion of our democracy is the greatest threat to Canada right now.
I mean, Canada's debt is not our is not our problem. By our means working class. I mean, yeah, that's generally what I mean by our problem. Like, really, the only thing that actually hurts is like how much the fucking dollar is worth. But like, honestly, who gives? Because it doesn't matter. Like, it only has value because we give it value. It's nothing but a fucking social construct. Because I'm sorry, but like, if a whole bunch of fucking companies that claim that make jobs leave the country and move somewhere else, it doesn't matter, because if there's work that, or if there's something that is needed, there's always going to be someone to do it. You're always going to need someone to scrub your toilets. You're always going to need someone to stock your shelves. So it doesn't matter.
Government is passing law to censor speech. Millions of Canadians are treated like second-class citizens. State-funded media bailouts and state-funded media, an unlawful declaration of the Emergency Act.
Okay.
I'm going to defend Canada's democracy.
Mr. Charest, the single greatest threat to Canada is?
Well, it is national unity. The greatest mistake we all could make as Canadians is to take this country for granted. And
okay, I am 100% certain now. He's totally a spy. Like, he is a Russian spy. You will not change my mind on this. Like, he is just a grifter that came from Russia all the way over here to infiltrate the conservatives and make fun of them.
All the things you've named on this stage at colleagues, none of them can be addressed unless there is a national conservative government that includes Alberta at the table. That's what is the most important threat, our national unity.
Mr. Aitchison.
And I'll build on that. I think the greatest threat to Canada right now is division. It's our political rhetoric and a political system that's designed to divide us to win votes. It's short-sighted and doesn't build a country up at all, and I think it's dividing our country.
Thank you all very much. I want to go to a question maybe a little more lighthearted, getting to know you a little bit more. And there are a lot of people who want to know this. It's not just me, trust me. But Mr. Baber, what was the last thing that you binge watched on TV?
Married with Children. I was at the cottage, and
That's kind of a self-report, my guy.
that was some time ago. I learned the English language watching Married with Children with subtitles. It's a great tool for new Canadians to learn English. Watch a good TV show.
Okay.
I mean, that goes
Mr.
for like
Charest.
any language, though.
There's a French series that was absolutely fantastic because it speaks to the relationships. C'est Appelle mon agent, call my agent in English. It was absolutely spectacular.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
Mr. Aitchison.
My parliamentary colleague Eric Malillo got me hooked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine while we were doing French immersion in Quebec.
Okay, I have a little bit more respect for him. That's actually a
Mr.
pretty good
Brown,
show.
You know, normally if I have free time, I love watching hockey, no surprise there. But my wife got me into Ozark and we binge watched it, and I'm told there's a new season out right now, and I'm too busy to watch it. So I'm in trouble with my wife.
Learning the language and stuff. I mean, yeah.
We'll have to watch it without me.
I've seen the final season, and I won't tell you how it ends. But you can imagine. Mr. Polyev.
Well, I think it was Netflix had a series on Trotsky, actually. And it helped me to better understand the diabolical evil of communism and totalitarian socialism.
What?
But, you know, the bright side is it helped me appreciate the freedom that we have in Canada that we have to stand up for and defend.
Like,
very
what
much.
freedoms, my guy? Like the only thing you could actually say that we have is like going to the fucking hospital without having to pay a shit ton of money for it. Like, outside of that, like, what else do we fucking have?
Dr. Lewis.
Bridgerton, and what I loved about that
Soviets
is
had way much
that
more than we did.
It was a different era, and people did not see race. They just existed and coexisted, and it was very beautiful because I also watched it in French and also improved my French.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all very much. We've got one question left, and then we're going to go back to some other stuff. But this is a good one, and Mr. Polyev, I'm going to throw this one to you. What historical figure from any time, anywhere, would you most like to have dinner with?
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh no.
I think through principle and courage, he saved the American Union and ended slavery. He did so at great, obviously, ultimate personal.
But he still owns slaves, right? So, just saying, he's not too great of a guy.
Sacrifice with his eventual assassination, but he had an incredible brain that he taught himself as an autodidact, coming from humble beginnings as a working class person.
Thank you very much.
I don't
Dr.
even think
Lewis.
that was true, right?
Nelson
I thought he was
Mandela,
born into
he
wealth.
existed
if
at
I
a
remember
time
correctly.
when his country was divided, torn apart by racial hatred, and yet he fought against it. He was able to overcome and bring people together.
Mr. Baber.
Ronald Reagan.
Oh,
he opposed
no.
one of the greatest evils of the 20th century, opposed the radical left and communism, and did it with grace and with courage. And we need to be resolute.
Ronald Reagan was dog shit, my guy. Like, he's the whole reason why America is, like, completely fucked right now. That's literally because of Ronald Reagan. Plus, he also, you know, had a hand in, you know, the Vietnam War, too. So that's pretty cool, right?
In the face of all those that would seek to erode our democracy, I admire him very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Charest.
I'm a great fan of the partnership of Sir John A. Macdonald and Georges-Étienne Cartier. And my son and I wrote a chapter in a book about Georges-Étienne Cartier, who showed extraordinary resilience, promoted property rights, and was one of those who allowed this country to actually come to be.
You know, Sir John A. would probably stick you with the bill for that dinner, but that's another thing altogether. Mr. Aitchison.
Mine is actually Nelson Mandela as well. He's a hero. How he brought South Africa together and ended apartheid is nothing short of miraculous and incredible.
The irony in like them mentioning Nelson Mandela is I think he was a Marxist, and like have a bunch of these people being like, "Oh, communism was bad," when they literally are talking about like a Marxist doing.
To you, Mr. Brown. Dinner.
Well, I'll agree with Mr. Schrey. John A. Macdonald, I resent the cancel culture we're seeing on, great figures who built our country, and the adversity, the challenges of uniting our country, building Canada. That would be a fascinating dinner.
Sorry, I'll figure this out by the end of the debate, my microphone. Thank you all very much. That was fascinating. I know it was a weird little journey to go on, but I think it was interesting. We are now moving on to the next segment of the debate, which is called Face Off. And before we start that, I'd like to bring Em up, who is going to give you all a prop. And I'll explain to everybody what this is all about. So as we are handing these out, this, in a way, is the segment that...
They only take the best parts of history and forget. I mean, that's just called whitewashing. That's all that is. Like they defang like a lot of radical figureheads like MLK, Nelson Mandela, other people like that. Doesn't matter. Like if they were to talk about MLK right now, it'd be like, oh yes, he wanted equality for, black folk in the States and everything like that. But they won't mention the fact that, he was literally sent death threats by the CIA, a couple assassination attempts on his life as well as his Marxist views.
You've all been waiting for when the candidates can choose who they want to debate on any particular issue, and here's the way it's going to work. I'll introduce the topic of the debate to a candidate. Not the question, just the topic. And then you decide, you tell the audience who you want to debate this with. Once you've chosen your opponent, I will then tell you what the question is. There will be 3 rounds of the person you have chosen to debate. The first round, each person gets a minute each. The second round, you get 45 seconds each. The third round, you get 30 seconds each. Now, this is where it gets interesting and why you have the prop in your hand. After we've done the 3 rounds between the 2 people, anybody else can enter this by simply raising your paddle. And you will have a guaranteed 30 seconds to put your 30 seconds in.
This is going to be fun, boys.
Here's the trick. There are 6 questions, and you can only use your paddle 5 times. You can use it all on one question if you want, or you can use it wherever you think you have the greatest advantage, so there is some strategy involved here. I wish you good luck with this. Now, unless there are any questions, we are going to start. And question number 1. Mr. Poilievre, the topic is law, order, and blockades. Who would you like to debate?
Patrick Brown.
Patrick Brown, okay. Here then, Mr. Poilievre, is the question. And remember, you have 1 minute in the first round to say your piece. We've seen over the past few years blockades at our borders, blockades on rail lines, blockades of construction, blockades at logging sites, and a blockade and an occupation of our capital city. Law enforcement experts say we will likely encounter more and more of this as the years progress. How do you decide when a protest becomes a threat to our national security and our national economy, and would you outlaw any protest that disables critical infrastructure, and that includes our cities?
Okay, so essentially if it's like left wing, say like the fucking residential school shit that was popping off last year, or like the BLM protest, that will automatically be like up there. But when it's like the fucking like losers that were in Ottawa, I don't think he's gonna care.
And that includes
Our cities.
I believe that blocking critical infrastructure should be illegal. And that's why before the truckers even arrived on Parliament Hill, I said I supported their peaceful and law-abiding efforts to restore their liberties and their livelihoods while condemning any individuals who broke laws, blocked critical infrastructure, or behaved badly. That's what individual responsibility actually means. Now, I just find it interesting that you didn't include in your list of threats the axe-wielding terrorists who've been attacking our pipeline workers in Western Canada. I don't know why
Wait,
that doesn't
what?
seem to be a trouble to you, but or the rest of the national media, because you're more concerned about truckers who've lost their jobs because of an unfair vaccine mandate imposed on them by a prime minister who was targeting them without any scientific basis.
Bro, like 98% of truckers were vaccinated. It was only the 2% that were crying about it. Like most of them just did not give a shit. Like this is the first time I'm actually hearing about this fucking psychopathic axe wielder. I don't believe that. There's no shot he just didn't pull that out of his ass.
You were about holding accountable people who've actually done violence, and most recently just set the car on fire of someone who was investing in the energy sector.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have 1 minute.
Tom, I don't support illegal blockades, whether it's at the Ambassador Bridge, whether it's against a pipeline. I think Conservatives need to stand for law and order, full stop, and illegal blockades have a massive cost on the country. You look at the cost when there was the blockade on the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. I was just visiting Mayor Drew Dilkins in Windsor just last week, and he was talking about how it affected their economy, Ontario's economy, Canada's economy. And I think Conservatives are the party of law and order, and we can't give exceptions
There it
to
is,
that.
boys.
Full stop, no illegal blockades.
You haven't used your full time, but if you want to give it back, that's fine. We can always use it.
Well, in terms of law and order, I would just add that there are areas that the Conservative Party have not focused on enough in Parliament. I look at bail reform. You know, I see it in the GTA. There is a giant loophole in our criminal justice system, and you've got frequent flyers. Literally the same people getting arrested and released again and again, and there's a cost to public safety with that.
Mr. Poilievre?
Do you remember back in February when the convoy was happening, and you had these clowns literally like cheering on the convoy people, even though they were waving like swastikas and Confederate flag. Fucking awesome.
You have 45 seconds.
Well, there is, and there's also a cost to the approach taken by Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Charest. They both believe in targeting law-abiding people who use firearms responsibly after having been vetted, licensed, and are already in possession of a license and training. Charest went after them with a long gun registry in Quebec. Trudeau wants to spend $1 billion targeting these same people. That money that Charest and Trudeau spent going after law-abiding people could have been spent reinforcing border security to stop the 80% of gun crimes that actually come in through smuggling and and we could also, instead of going after the lawful, target the criminals who would do the crimes with mandatory prison sentences to take them off our streets.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, 45.
I mean, but that's not going to solve the problem though, because when they're released from our shitty prison system, they're going to continue the acts of violence. You gotta rehabilitate them, my guy. That's how you stop that.
You know what? We do have a huge problem at our border, and I get briefings almost on a weekly basis by the Chief of Police in Peel, and we've had meetings with all the Chiefs of Police in the GTA to talk about smuggled firearms. 90% of our homicides last year in Peel were from firearms smuggled across the border, and we need a government of Canada that would take that seriously. Criminal organizations are becoming more sophisticated than ever before in terms of getting firearms into our country using new technology, and we need to actually listen to our law enforcement. You know, in Ottawa, we have a government that announces photo ops and press releases when it comes to firearm policy. They're not listening to law enforcement, and we desperately need them to.
Mr. Polyev, 30 seconds.
Remember, the state needs to be under the law, and what Trudeau is now doing is unlawful censorship. C11 is an attempt by him to give his bureaucrats the power to control what you see and say online, and to take down things that he doesn't agree with. That is not lawful. That is not democratic. I will repeal those laws, and I will restore the freedom of speech as a principle for the federal government, and also bring financial penalties to universities that shut down open and free debate on campuses.
Hey, but like that's not even true though. I read through C11 and it was fucking boring. There was no mentions of that. Like all that it was like essentially like trying to push like Canadian national. All it essentially was. But you can still get access to like fucking American programs. So if you want to watch fucking Fox News, still watch Fox News.
And Mr. Brown, 30 seconds to you.
You know, I would just add that when it comes to firearm legislation in this country, we have bad legislation on top of bad legislation, and we've got a government that is missing the mark. One of the reasons we've had a proliferation of gun and gang violence, where there's no respect for postal codes and jurisdictions, is there isn't a concerted national approach. Under Prime Minister Harper, there were serious consequences. We understood that we had to draw a line when it came to gun crime in our country, and we need the same strict approach again.
Thank you very much, the two of you. Mr. Charest, you're first up, and anybody else, if you want to get in, just raise your paddle. Mr. Charest, 30
Thank
seconds.
you, and since I've been brought into this debate, let me start by pointing out that Mr. Polyev is very conveniently rewriting history tonight. The fact of the matter is, he did support illegal blockades. We all admit that this was a mess created by Mr. Trudeau, unnecessary, a total mess. But I disagree with anyone who has a privileged position of making laws supporting illegal blockades that have cost us millions of jobs and cost us investment in this country.
Thank you, sir.
Wait.
Mr. Baber and then Dr.
Wait, he's actually kind of right about that though. Like the costing of millions of jobs, no, he's not right, but like yeah, no, like they actually supported that. So, yeah, he's actually right on that.
This is a good opportunity to set the record straight. Everything that Justin Trudeau said about the protests in Ottawa turned out to be false. Right. There was no foreign collusion. That's right. There was very little foreign funding. The arson was not connected, and there were no weapons found anywhere near the site. And on February 18th, we saw, as the government was breaking the rule of law with an unlawful declaration of emergencies, the protesters remained peaceful. There was no resistance, no assaults, and on February 18th, we saw this was a truly peaceful movement.
But it was, like, none of that's true, though. Like, there was already, like, leaks that, you know, that they were getting funding from American backers, and there were actually reports of people bringing firearms to your peaceful protest. Like, that's so stupid. Making that argument is idiotic. Yeah, Trudeau let the convoy happen. I mean, yeah, of course he does, but like when fucking indigenous people protest like a pipeline being built through the very limited amount of land that we gave them, and, you know, poisoning their water supplies, and, you know, understandably they're upset about it, he fucking brutalizes them, so I don't know what to tell you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. Go ahead.
I think we're missing the point about the illegal blockades. If elected officials had just listened to the truckers, they would not have been there that long. In addition, the vulnerability that Canadians face knowing that Big Brother can go into their account and freeze their account without a court order, that has set our democracy.
Wait, that was actually a conspiracy theory, though. That never happened. Because I actually remember, like, that shit was popping off in, like, right-wing circles. Just a nonsensical conspiracy theory. Like, don't get me wrong, fucking Trudeau is like, dog shit, but he's not smart enough for that.
Democracy into a declining state. We need to uphold our Charter of Rights. We need to uphold our freedoms and ensure that governments never do that again.
It didn't even happen, though.
Anybody else want to get in on this? going. You want, okay, Mr. Baber, second chance.
Just want to talk about an important issue. My first law job was at a community legal clinic where I picked up a lot of compassion and love for people. Far too often, our criminal justice system criminalizes addiction and mental health. I'll come down hard on sex offenders, on gun violence and traffickers, but imposing strict criminal penalty for possession does nothing to deter drug addiction or heal addiction. We have a mental health and addictions catastrophe in our country, and we need a justice system that recognizes it and offers Canadians a treatment and a way out.
Thank you very much.
Wait,
And Mr.
wait,
Poilievre.
based. He's
I
actually
think
right
Dr.
about
Lewis
that.
raised an excellent point about the government's abuse of the Emergency Act to freeze bank accounts. Well, now there's a proposal to create a central bank digital currency, which would involve people depositing their accounts, their money, with the government itself. This gives massive new powers for surveillance, control, and censorship, and gives the state far too much control over our money, and that's why I would ban a central bank digital currency and give people back control of their money from bankers and politicians.
You know what? At this point, fuck it. Just get rid of the money. Get rid of it. If it's just gonna cause so much problems for these losers, just get rid of it. You don't need it anyways.
Dr. Lewis?
Mr. Poilievre encouraged people to buy Bitcoin, which is a digital currency. So I'm quite surprised that he is saying now that he would ban digital currency, as if he does not know that Bitcoin is a digital currency. He also encouraged people to cash in their fiat currency, their paper money, and buy Bitcoin. If they had done that, they would have lost $37,000 by the time he had said that to do that to today. So I'm very concerned about that.
Mr. Poilievre.
Well, that's just false. One, Bitcoin is not a central bank digital currency. It is obviously not.
It's on the
not controlled by any
blockchain.
central bank anywhere in the world. Two, people can make their own investment decisions. I've simply said they should be free to decide whether or not they want to use Bitcoin. I don't want to be like communist China and ban Bitcoin or other technologies, because in a free market...
The only reason why China actually banned that is because, for one, it was using a shit ton of power, and for two, it was really bad on their economy. That's why they banned it. Oh my god, fucking conservatives are so stupid, man. Fucking love it.
market, people should have the opportunity to make those decisions for themselves. That's my position.
Thank you very much. Are we done? Oh, Dr. Lewis, one more time.
In fact, Mr. Poilievre said that you could hedge against inflation, which is not true. So Mr. Poilievre is promoting a decentralized currency over his own government's currency. That is a problem for someone who held a shadow cabinet position as a finance minister.
I mean, she's technically not wrong about that.
Sorry, Mr. Charest and then Mr. Brown.
Well, on Bitcoin, I mean, everyone just finds it totally bizarre what Mr. Poilievre is suggesting. We all get it on blockchain, that's fine. Bitcoin has lost 60% of its value since November of last year, 20% in the last month. Anyone following his advice that we saw on YouTube would have lost 20% of their earnings. Do you actually think your parents enjoy having your parents lose 20% of their retirement funds? I mean, this is lunacy, and it doesn't make sense at all.
No, but it's kind of funny.
Mr. Brown.
I have to agree with Dr. Lewis and Mr. Charest. I disagree with Mr. Poilievre's approach that you can opt out of inflation with cryptocurrency. Magic internet money fluctuates.
Wait, what? It doesn't, though. I hate that some of them have a point and then say something stupid. I mean, yeah, welcome to conservatives. They have nothing but fucking brain disease. Like, sometimes they're actually right about stuff, and I hate to admit it. But sometimes they actually do have a point in all their mumbo jumbo.
Lastly, 30% or more in one day. And the last thing we should be doing is encouraging our parents and grandparents, along with vulnerable families, to gamble their savings, their retirements, in something this risky that's been learned watching late-night YouTube videos.
Mr. Poilievre.
They're not
Mr. Brown,
YouTube
that's not
videos,
what I
they're
said.
Facebook
You're
videos. Get it
misleading the
right.
public. I clearly stated that people should have the freedom. Now, the reason why many people have chosen to exercise that freedom is because central banks have been attacking the value of our national currencies by printing $400 billion here in Canada, leading to 30-year highs in inflation, doubling the house prices, leading to massive volatility in many sectors of our economy. And that risk is one I pointed out earlier on and could lead to another debt crisis. So frankly, we should protect the value of our traditional money rather than banning private money.
Mr. Brown, you're up.
So Mr. Poilievre just said that he didn't say that. No one in this room and no one in Canada will believe that you didn't say you can opt out of inflation through cryptocurrency. That is misleading. Your words are there. You can Google it yourself and watch it on the internet. And I have to say, it is bad advice to be giving to Canadians that is so risky. And you should know that. As a former finance critic, that's not the advice you should be giving to the country.
And Mr. Poilievre, you raised your paddle for one more time?
Mr. Brown, if you want to talk about risks to people's finances, you were the one who said, you promised when you ran for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, you would oppose a carbon tax. And then as soon as you got in, you reversed yourself entirely. Not only did you endorse just any carbon tax, you endorsed the carbon tax of Justin Trudeau, which is in place today and recently increased and is one of the reasons why prices are so high across this country. That is a threat to our money. That is a decision you made after you promised not to. People can't believe a word you said.
That's not even true, though. The only reason why the prices went up is because of the war in Ukraine. That's the only reason why. The carbon tax has nothing to do with it.
I can't believe that.
Was that a threat? I mean, he's a fucking conservative. He thinks that, like, I don't know, calling you gay is a threat.
You have a bunch of politicians here, career politicians, giving people investment advice. Let's distinguish the issue, okay? There's digital currency controlled by government that has government friction potentially and compromises our privacy. And then there's investment decisions that people make. Human ingenuity is great. We should encourage research and development and diversified portfolios. But we should behave like conservatives again and not tell people what they should and should invest in. Maybe we should oppose supply management. Maybe we should oppose equalization. We should not be afraid of being who we are. Enough.
Mr. Baber, that's great. Are we all done? Okay. I do remind you, you've only got 5. So, talking about bank accounts. I don't know, but somebody over there does.
It's only been like one question. That's fucking awesome.
All of this conversation, though, leads neatly to my next question. And the topic is the future of the party. Mr. Charest, who would you like to debate on the future of the party?
Mr. Poilievre.
Mr. Poilievre, there we go. The question. The leadership campaign, this leadership campaign, has been particularly vicious on a personal level. We've seen.
You only got 5. I'm going to steal that line. Peru.
We've heard candidates call each other liars, accuse others of having no integrity. One of you even says it sounds like a kindergarten class. There are also...
Okay, like, to be fair, though, it is really funny watching these hogs tear each other apart. And this is only the first one. I can't wait to see what the later debates have. It'd be fucking awesome. I'm a little bit sad that they didn't play the noise that they had more. I really wanted them to go off and for them to play that noise. That would have been really funny. I'm also kind of sad that they didn't invite Derek Sloan. Derek Sloan would have been fun.
Deep divisions on a lot of policy issues, from abortion to zero emissions. The conservative movement has split before in the recent past. We know that. So the question to you, Mr. Charest and Mr. Poilievre, how do you make room in the conservative tent for all those who hold opposing views to yours? How does the party enter the next election? How can the party enter the next election united? Mr. Charest, you have 1 minute.
Tom, this is for all those listening to us tonight and in the room, this is the key question. Everyone knows that the Trudeau government needs to get out of office, and they're looking to the Conservative Party of Canada as the national alternative. And the question they're asking themselves is this: are you up to the task? Are you, yes or no, going to be a national conservative alternative and party? That's our challenge, ladies and gentlemen. And what is that party? It's based on core values that we all agree on. Fiscal conservatism, a market-based economy, economic policies that promote economic growth, including oil, gas, pipelines, and mining. Families also, all sorts of families, plus respecting the rule of law.
So all dog shit
foundation of our
policies.
society. There is no freedom if you do not respect the rule of law. There is no freedom. And it includes a federalism that conservatives practice, that includes Alberta, includes Ontario, Quebec, that actually makes this country work.
Crusty ass anarchists would disagree with you on that, my guy. Literally just talk to any like anarchist and they will tell you that no, that's not true.
Mr. Polyev, you have 1 minute.
We need to unite the party around freedom. Social conservatives want the freedom to raise their kids with their own values and preach their faith without censorship.
They already do
Fiscal
that.
Conservatives want the freedom to make their own financial decisions, control their own money, including without excessive taxes or carbon taxes.
You're rich, you already do
Rural
that.
conservatives want the freedom to own and control their own property. Progressive conservatives want
happens.
for women, minorities, First Nations to have the freedom to make their own decisions without discrimination. Libertarian conservatives want freedom of speech, freedom to make their own decisions online, and freedom to speak.
Oh, okay, why don't you just say that they're fascist? Just say that they're fascist. If you're libertarian, right, you're fascist. Just say that they're Nazis, man. Come on.
Without the government censoring them. So when we unite the party along that consistent principle of freedom, then we bring all the various parts of our party together, and we electrify and excite a new generation of young people that I've been bringing into the coalition so that we can form the next government and beat Justin Trudeau.
Mr. Charest, you have 45 seconds.
I want to be very clear. I'm not running as a hyphenated conservative, ladies and gentlemen. We've had enough. We'll leave that to the Trudeau and the left to hyphenate everyone. I
Trudeau's
am not a
part of the
hyphenated
left.
conservative. I am a conservative, period. You know what values I espoused and practiced all my life. And once we are rallied around those values and we're together, you also know that we will respect those who don't agree with us, who may have different views. And Mr. Polyev talked about social conservatives. Let's talk about that. He still won't tell you his position of whether he is pro-choice or pro-life. I respect social conservatives. They will always have a place in our party. They are good people, faith-based people who deserve a place at the table and in the family.
Mr. Polyev, 45.
Well, I believe in freedom of choice on that issue. I already said that at the very beginning. So I don't know what you missed. I don't know if you were.
Now he says it.
Yes, it is. That's what I said. But Mr. Charest, why didn't you take a moment to acknowledge that you're the only one on this stage who actually voted for a law that would recriminalize abortion when you were part of the Mulroney government? You did. You did. And you can take a moment now to renounce your earlier vote
love this.
if you've changed your mind, but that was your position. You seem to have forgotten it. You've forgotten a lot of things about your record. You forgot that you brought in a carbon tax. You forgot that you raised the fuel tax, the sales tax, the health tax. You forgot that you banned natural gas development in your own province. You forgot you brought in a long gun registry. You seem a little bit forgetful about your record, Mr.
All right,
Charest,
see you
but
later.
Canadians
This
now
is
remember.
fucking awesome.
No. You know, you guys know the rules. You know the consequences. Mr. Charest, 30 seconds.
I am very proud of my record as a conservative that stands on its own merits, on fiscal conservatism, on reducing the size of government, reducing taxes, which I did when I was premier, by the way. Quebecers had $1 billion less taxes paid and higher disposable income after I finished in government, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, Mr. Polyev, thank you for at least now telling us that you are pro-choice. We understand that's what you're saying tonight. Please confirm that for us.
And Mr. Polyev, you have 30 seconds.
I did confirm my position that I will not introduce any law on abortion as Prime Minister. I made that very clear. But Mr. Charest, you're wrong about your tax record. You raised the sales tax, the carbon tax, the fuel tax. Just like Patrick Brown, you're trying to flip-flop on it and say one thing on the stage different than what you said before. And the overall tax burden in Quebec went from 19% of the economy to 25% of the economy under your government. That is your record. You can't run away from it. I have a clear, solid record as a tax cutter that leaves more money in people's pockets.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have 30 seconds.
First of all, Pierre Poilievre just ran on a carbon tax and knocked on doors in Carleton literally 6 months ago, literally in the last election. Now, but let's talk about the future of the party. The future of the party, we have to win where we've lost. We've lost in suburban Canada. And I don't see us winning any new seats. Actually, I see us losing seats if we run on the same discriminatory policies that Pierre Poilievre's had a history of supporting. We must be the party that celebrates and supports religious freedom, not tramples it. Full stop.
Thanks very much. Dr. Lewis.
Well, Mr. Poilievre said that no pro-life bill will pass in his caucus, but he believes in freedom. Are you going to give your MPs the freedom to vote their conscience on issues of life?
Am I allowed to answer?
If you use your paddle, you can. That's
Well, he's been silent on the issue, so.
okay. And Mr. Poilievre, you've raised your paddle. You have 30 seconds.
I mean, he's essentially just gonna run on the same campaign O'Toole did, so it's not even gonna fucking matter. He's gonna lose. Trudeau.
I do believe in free votes. So there's your direct answer. And as for Mr. Brown, sorry, Patrick, you told the members of the Conservative Party in Ontario that you were against a carbon tax. Then you flip-flopped and embraced a carbon tax. You said that you were a pro-life social conservative, and then after you became leader, you said that social conservatives were intolerant dinosaurs. You said that you would get rid of the sex ed program in Ontario, and then you embraced it. You now attack all the Harper government policies that you enthusiastically supported and embraced when you were part of his caucus.
Thank
Nobody
you, Mr.
can believe a word that
Is
you
anybody
say.
else wanting to get involved in this? Mr. Aitchison, 30 seconds.
Well, listen, I appreciate everybody talking about the importance of, all the different types of conservatives. I think Mr. Poilievre gave us a great list of all the different types of conservatives. And it is important for us to respect each other and have respectful dialogue. But it's not enough just to unite conservatives. We need to win over swing voters, people who aren't part of our party. And I think that's going to be extremely difficult, especially if they watch some of the nastiness on this stage tonight.
Sorry, Mr. Baber.
I'll unite the party by restoring democracy in the Conservative Party, but most importantly, bring back disillusioned voters. Our party failed to stand up for many Canadians against lockdowns, against mandates, until the truckers came to town. Many Canadians felt that we've abandoned them, so they voted for another party, or they didn't vote at all, and now they're disillusioned with our party. I'm the only one on the stage who stood up for Canadians for 2 years, for a year and a half before it was popular, and I'll bring back disillusioned voters. We cannot win if we're not united right of center.
Anybody else? Dr. Lewis?
Mr. Baber was not the only one who stood up for Canadians who lost their jobs due to mandates, who were discriminated against, who cannot fly. I also stood up for those Canadians, and I wanted to make that point.
And Mr. Brown, I believe you've got one left.
Okay. Well, let me be very clear. I was one of the only big city mayors in the country that didn't impose vaccine mandates. No firefighter, no police officer, no long-term city employee lost their job in Brampton. I stood by the right to have personal health choices. And I have to say, it's surprising during the leadership campaign that all of a sudden Pierre Poilievre comes out against mandates, because in the heat of the battle, he didn't say a word. He was hiding in his basement at a time that I had longtime municipal employees in Ottawa calling me, asking for help. I give Roman Baber credit. He was there. He was heard. Dr. Lewis was heard. Disappeared.
Thanks very much.
He just wanted his 10-piece, my guy.
It would seem appropriate for me at this point, and I'm getting the information in my ear, but I want to pass it on. Mr. Brown, you've got one intervention left. Mr. Poilievre, you're out. You've used your 5. Dr. Lewis, so have you. I'm waiting to hear. Mr. Baber, you've got 4. Oh, you've got 1 left, Mr. Baber. Mr. Charest, you've got 3 left. Oh, good, you're keeping count. And you've got 4 left. Is everybody clear on what you've got and what you don't? Okay, thank you very much.
They blew through them.
Ms. Lewis, this next question is for you, and the topic is energy. And who would you like to debate?
I'll debate Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Aitchison and Dr. Lewis. Excellent. Here's the question for both of you, starting with Dr. Lewis. Oil and gas, as we know, in Canada has seen a price rebound in this year, but the export growth of these commodities has been constrained by pipeline infrastructure. You've all said that you would boost the building of pipelines. There are multiple jurisdictions, as we know, that need to be involved in that process. So the question is this: how would you do this? Who would pay for these pipelines, and how would you deal with Indigenous or provincial opposition? Dr. Lewis.
Investing in Canadian oil and gas is the best way to grow our economy. We can enter into agreements with Indigenous populations that will actually enrich those populations. And many of those agreements have been entered into, and it has been beneficial in uplifting those populations. We also need to ensure that we eliminate Bill C-69 and Bill C-48, which is really crippling our local capacity to develop our oil and gas. We have to get our products to market, build pipelines. We could go through Churchill and get our products to Tidewater and offset dictatorship oil.
You have approvals, set timelines on these things, and get the process moving and make sure it's not delayed. We must simplify and speed up this process, stop dithering, and provide certainty. This is one of the biggest challenges that we face. Investment doesn't like uncertainty, and this is part of the problem we face here is uncertainty. We need to make it clear, concise, and put timelines on it, and I think Pierre would be perfect at that.
Dr. Lewis, you have 45 seconds.
I think it was very short-sighted for us not to invest in pipelines, and we're seeing the implications of that now. In Europe, 40% of all the oil that's purchased is purchased from Russia. We're actually financing the war between Ukraine and Russia by not getting our products to offset dictatorship oil. Every day we import 555,000 barrels of oil. We have the third largest accessible oil reserve.
But they have like Saudi Arabia as well, though. So that doesn't matter too much. Like, we should be moving away from fucking oil anyways.
On the planet, which we are leaving untapped. It is a great resource that we could use to rebuild our economy, develop our infrastructure. For every job that's created from the oil and gas sector, 7 splinter jobs are created across the country. This could help us out of the recession.
Mr. Aitchison, to you for 45.
Yeah, I would also add that, of course, I think we all agree that one of the reasons we're also pro-pipeline is because Canada's energy is the answer to a lot of problems in this world today. I mean, we see what's going on in Ukraine right now. In Canada, we don't even have the capacity to scale up to help countries like Ukraine and countries like Germany and Europe because we're not ready. We haven't been doing the work. We have had a liberal
My man
government
thinks
just
that
gotten in the
Europe
way
is a
and made things
country.
more difficult
Hell
every
yeah.
step of the way. It's good for our economy. It's good for our environment, and it's good for advancing foreign policy. Canadian energy is some of the cleanest in the world. People don't realize that Fort Mac has reduced their carbon output from their production by over 30%. That's incredible. I guarantee you Venezuela's not doing that.
What the fuck does Venezuela have to do with this?
I just underlined part of the question, which is who pays for
Why the fuck do conservatives always point towards Venezuela? Like, come on, pick a new location, my guy. I swear, it's always fucking Venezuela.
this?
I'm sorry?
Part of the question is who pays for this?
Well, if we are building pipelines and we are selling our products and we're getting our products to market, we will have enough resources that we can reinvest back into our economy and actually improve the lives of certain regions. Even in the north, we could invest in improving those individuals' lives and making sure that we build critical infrastructures in the north, bring down the cost of fuel, assist with the high cost of food, and cancel the carbon tax.
Okay, but that's like ultimately not even the fucking northern Canada's problem. Their problem is the fucking incredibly expensive prices for things like food and other commodities. What you should be doing is you should be tackling that issue first, if you actually want to, help sustain them. But you don't give a shit about that, even though like 1 in 3 children in the north go hungry.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. 30 seconds left for you.
And you're asking me who pays for the pipelines?
Yeah.
Yeah, industry should pay for the pipelines. There's no question about that. And if there is certainty in the process and there's certainty in the system, they're more than happy to make those investments. But it is the industry that should be doing it.
Terrific. Anybody else want to get involved in this discussion? Going, gone. Well, I think only 2 of you have battles left, so let's move on to the next one. And Mr. Aitchison, this is a question to you, and the topic is the North. Who do you choose to debate?
Mr. Baber.
Mr. Baber it is. Okay, and here's the question, Mr. Aitchison. The largest part of our land mass in this country is north of where most Canadians live. And while incredibly beautiful, as we all know, the North is struggling economically, demographically, and now with melting ice, its very security may be at risk as hostile nations move to take advantage of that area. One could argue that the North is our biggest challenge, but it's also our biggest opportunity. So, what is your vision for the North?
My vision of the North includes actually engaging in the North. I think Mr. Charest made a very good point about making sure we have not just one, but two deep water ports in the North. You're quite correct that ice is melting, and there are other nations that are cruising through our northern waters and not all that interested in what we think about it. We need to defend the North, we need to engage with the North, and we need to be making investments in the North. But that includes, of course, our military commitments. We need to be making sure that we're not just committing 2% of GDP on military spending to meet our NATO commitments, but we also need to be making sure we're meeting commitments to protect Canada. And it's not just enough to be protecting the East and the West Coast. We have a North Coast, and it's been neglected, and we need to invest more there. And so I fundamentally think that this is about engaging all parts of our country and making sure that we can secure it at every port, at every coast.
Bro, who cares about that? Like, just honestly, that should just be an international shipping lane anyways. Who gives a shit? Fuck, you guys don't give a shit about whatever happened.
Thank you. The best way to help northern communities is to unlock their natural resources potential, and not just oil and gas. I'm very interested in mining. There's an insatiable appetite right now around the world for precious metals and precious minerals, and Canada and the North are blessed with them. And we can do this. We can strike the right balance, we can consult stakeholders, and we can protect the environment. But we need to end this resistance to the development of natural resources. And northern communities are going to be the greatest beneficiaries of that. That also means we'll improve infrastructure and build roads and highways in the North. Let's bring northern communities a true economic opportunity. Let's build roads. Let's start building and working in our country again. Let's get back to work.
How about instead of roads, we build fucking trains? That sounds way better. Like, fuck. I would honestly rather have trains than fucking roads. Like, trains, oh, fuck. Just thinking of trains is making fucking hard. Like, why can't we have that? Like, even, like, it doesn't have to be, like, Japan or China level status of fucking trains. I'd be okay with, like, even European style trains. Like, they're more cost efficient. They're more green. They reduce congestion. What's not to love about it?
Mr. Aitchison, back to you for 45.
I think speaking about the North also provides an opportunity to talk about housing, which is an issue that has not come up in this debate yet. And it's a crisis in this country, and it's particularly a crisis in the North. And we need to commit as a federal government not just to ensure that big cities and southern Canada is getting things built, but we need to make sure that we make a commitment to the North as well, because the housing situation there is as much of a crisis or worse than anywhere else in Canada. And so housing would be a crucial investment to make sure that we're engaged and making sure that the health of residents in northern Canada is sound.
Mr. Baber?
I want good paying jobs in the North. I had a gentleman approach me a couple of months ago who I didn't know, and he told me that his company owned a mining permit for 15 years, and they weren't able to go ahead because local stakeholders would not consult. I know that the Supreme Court recognized that there's a duty to consult, but it doesn't mean that we can't strike a balance. We can be reasonable again. Let's mitigate environmental risk. Let's agree on profit sharing, but I will not allow to hold up the development of Canada's natural resources. We need them for the well-being of our northern communities, and most importantly, we need them to get out of the fiscal mess that the Liberal government is leaving us in.
Mr. Aitchison, you have 30.
Some debate between Roman and I think we were agreeing on almost everything here, and I think that's kind of nice. I don't really have much more to add on the issue. I think that there's been a lot of talk over the years about engaging in the North. and not a lot of action. I think that that's pretty typical of this Liberal government. We've seen, when it comes to housing, lots of photo ops, but not a lot of ribbon cuttings. And I think that's disgusting, and we need to do better. And Conservatives are a party of action. And so we will get these things done, and we will engage with the North and actually do it.
I mean, he's technically not wrong about them being a party of action. Like, granted, their actions are dog shit, but it's technically right. Like, the only thing that the fucking Liberals achieved was fucking legalizing pot and giving us another holiday in the form of truth and reconciliation. And, like, that's it. Like, nothing else.
Mr. Polyev. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a very complicated show. Okay, Mr. Baber, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate my friend Scott for his kindness and for his gracious approach to this race. Perhaps it will give me an opportunity to politely respond to Dr. Lewis. I'm the only one on the stage that opposed lockdowns. I was removed from the Doug Ford caucus in January 2021 when I spoke up about the collateral harm that we're causing.
How do you get removed from the Doug Ford caucus? That's fucking hilarious. Like, what? Bro, you have to be like some kind of special stupid in order to be removed from that. That's actually fucking awesome.
Our health and mental health by way of locking down healthy people instead of a focused approach against a very transmissible virus. But I appreciate that she joined against mandates subsequent to the last general election. Thank you.
Mr. Charest, did you raise your paddle or did?
May I respond since it's...
No, if you I'm sorry. No, you can't. Mr. Charest, go ahead.
Well, thank you. And Scott and Roman have both said things that I totally agree with. And thank you for a very constructive discussion on the North, to which I want to add. Yes, I would build 2 military bases in the North, one with a deep water port. This is one of the most important issues facing our country. And this is a good city to talk about it. Edmonton has a very deep connection to the North. But it also includes affirming our sovereignty. It includes things like icebreakers, unarmed icebreakers, submarines that we also need to build to be able to patrol the North. It includes solidifying our agreement with the Americans on NORAD.
We're done. Anybody else want to? No? Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Thank you very much. Mr. Baber, this is for you. The subject is cost of living, and who would you like to debate?
Mr. Charest.
Mr. Charest and Mr. Baber on this question. We have seen a rapid rise in the cost of living for Canadians at levels we haven't seen in 40 years. And we are certainly not alone. Every Western country is going through this right now. Under your leadership, is there anything a Canadian government...
Outside of, like, Venice. Like, Venice doesn't have that problem. Because, you know, they have public housing.
...can do to reverse the worldwide trend without making the wealth gap any larger in Canada than it already is today?
So I think it's important that we acknowledge the cause of inflation and the rising prices. It's not just the $500 billion in debt that we printed in the last 2 years. It's lockdowns, something no one on the stage other than myself was willing to acknowledge. We stopped the global supply chain at its tracks numerous times and then restarted demand again. Supply is not catching up to demand. The best thing we can do right now is to provide the market with some certainty. I will never allow for any lockdowns or any stoppages. I'm also going to restore discipline to government. We're spending way beyond our means, but in terms of affordability, I'm going to repeal the carbon tax on day one. And I will cut income taxes across the board with money saved from equalization payments. I would rather that Canadians spend them instead of provincial governments. We are the Conservative government. We should not be afraid to be talking about cutting taxes.
Mr. Baber,
I mean, that's all you
Mr.
guys do
Charest.
is just cut.
Well, Roman, on the issue of lockdowns, and I agree, I think one of the things we need to do if we don't want to have the lockdowns...
Okay, so the irony in the lockdowns is that Europe did way better with lockdowns than we did. Australia did way better with lockdowns than we did. New Zealand did. Like, fucking anywhere in Asia did. And, like, they're doing perfectly fine. The only reason why it's still such a big problem here because we're the dumbest continent on the planet. And, you know, we decided to open up the borders to the States again. And, you know, not actually properly enforce lockdowns. Like, we did good wave 1, but outside of that, we did fucking horrible. Like, we essentially just put up our hands being like, this is too hard. Let's not do it again.
And the restrictions we had the last time is change our healthcare system so that we have capacity. That's one of the reasons why Canada had more restrictions than anywhere else in the world, because we don't. So we need to open up this healthcare system so there's more flexibility, more private sector participation in this. On inflation, we need to reduce spending, and we also need to, I think, reduce the income tax load of Canadians. I did that during the Great Recession, and we had a better performance than Ontario, Canada, the United States, or Europe. Lower unemployment and stronger economic growth. Those are the things that we can do to increase the disposable income of people, which is exactly what happened after I was Premier. The disposable income, especially of lower income people, increased substantially because we reduced taxes and controlled spending.
Okay, so he's actually wrong about that. The best way to control inflation is by, having people who make a shit ton of money, pay their fair share of taxes, and corporations for that matter as well. The only people that it actually cuts taxes for is people like him. So it ultimately doesn't matter, because taxes are up regardless, but it's just so stupid. If you actually want to tackle the problem of people not having enough disposable income, should be like raising those taxes, as well as like nationalizing industries like, say, lumber and oil, and invest into like public infrastructure, whether it be like trains, roads, or other social safety nets like healthcare, because we saw how horrible our healthcare system with COVID. So there's only room for improvement there, as well as, investing into public housing, mental health services, stuff like that.
Thanks very much. Mr. Baber, you have 45.
We should never lock down, Mr. Charest, no matter what the circumstances are. We have to acknowledge the toll that this took on people. A mental health pandemic. In Ontario alone, more than 300,000 surgeries were delayed. More than 1 million cancer screenings missed. The whole point is that the toll on our health was considerably greater. Instead, we should have been protecting vulnerable populations, beefing up our resources in congregate settings where 80% of the risk was. We should have been increasing the healthcare capacity we had, but we should acknowledge lockdowns, the effect on our children, the effect on small business. This is something that we cannot escape, and we need to think about and resolve going long term.
Well, and we agree that we need to avoid the lockdowns, and that's why I would change the Canada Health Act. I'd introduce a new act, because Canada's issue has been capacity. We're the country in the world who's had that problem, capacity to be able to absorb people. But let me also talk about something else in relation to inflation.
That's a Nazi
Mr.
thing.
Poilievre's suggestion of firing the governor of the Bank of Canada, his suggestion that of saying that the Bank of Canada is financially illiterate, is irresponsible. It creates doubt. If you're an investor looking at coming to Canada and you hear that kind of a statement coming from a member of the House of Commons, you'd think you're in a third world country. We cannot afford to have any leader who goes out there and deliberately undermines the confidence in institutions. Conservatives do not do that.
Mr. Baber, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the cost of living. The political class is out of touch with Canadians. Prices for produce, for instance, have tripled. This may be one of the greatest challenges that Canadians are facing right now, and we need to do everything possible to make life more affordable for them, not more expensive. Let's repeal the carbon tax. It's increasing the price on everything. Let's cut the income tax, and let's stop devaluing the loonie.
Mr. Charest.
Well, on the carbon tax, I agree with Roman that we need to get out and repeal the Trudeau carbon tax on consumers. And I would be inspired by Alberta. Here in Alberta, since 2002, and you renewed this in 2019, there is a price on carbon for large emitters. And let me point something out here. This is extremely important to get it right. Otherwise, we will not be elected as a political party if we're not credible on this, A. B, we will not get investment unless there is a predictable investment environment on an issue like pricing carbon.
Thank you. That round has finished. Would anybody else like to join in? Mr. Brown, you've still got points, as do you.
We don't have
Mr.
any
Aitchison?
more points.
No, I know you're out. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, we are now going to move on to the next question. And Mr. Brown, the issue is climate change. Who would you like to debate?
My friend, Dr. Leslie Lewis.
Okay, Dr. Lewis and Patrick Brown. Mr. Brown, here's the question. In 2015, almost every country in the world, including Canada, signed on to the Paris Accords to fight climate change. To date, not a single G20 country is on track to meet that obligation. Should the Paris Agreement still be the benchmark for Canada in measuring itself by, and if yes, would you commit to meeting the initial Paris Agreement by 2030, and who will bear the cost of getting us there?
So first of all, I should say that the Liberals promised Canada to targets they have no intention, no plan to meet. And that's part of the problem. We need to have a credible environmental plan to actually achieve the targets that Canada commits to. I don't believe in Canada committing to targets that we're unable to commit. And frankly, it is photo op environmentalism. How is it better for the environment to be importing foreign dictator oil into Canada? I find it infuriating.
I love the fact that they're instead of saying Russian oil, they're saying foreign dictator oil. It's fucking hilarious.
That I can't use. When I fill up the pump in Brampton, Ontario, I can't use and be a wealth generator for the Canadian energy sector. And I have to say, the fact that our Prime Minister, this Prime Minister, doesn't understand that is a huge toll on our economy. It's costing Canadians more. Looking at the latest stats, 73,000 barrels from Saudi Arabia, a loss to our economies. He hasn't invested into our energy corridor 14 billion. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Brown. Dr. Lewis.
Canada signed on to the Paris Accord. They didn't meet their targets. The U.S. pulled out of the Paris Accord. They met their targets under Donald Trump.
I mean, they literally didn't, but like it doesn't even matter because like the Paris climate Accords is just statics anyway. No one's gonna meet them. I would be surprised if anyone does, to be honest.
The issue is not whether or not we sign on to the Paris Accord. The issue is the resolve to make sure that we leave the future for future generations better environment than what we inherited. There is no partisanship in the environment. We must work together to make sure that we are protecting the environment. The carbon tax doesn't reduce emissions, it just increases revenues. We need to ensure that we adopt technology that will bring down emissions, that will increase conservation. And we have to have a credible environmental plan. And that plan has to have a component of education to change the way we interact with the environment.
Wait, so you want green energy and nuclear? Augers.
Mr. Brown, 45 seconds.
Yes. So you look at China, one of the greatest polluters in the world, 30% of the global emissions. To help with environment, we need to export clean Canadian energy to the world. Since 2014, 18 LNG projects, none approved. At the same time in the US, 7 were built, and now they have 22% of the global market share. So the question about helping countries reliant on coal have clean Canadian energy should be how Canada could help abroad. And right now, we need a conservative government that can get pipelines built. And the reality is there are some candidates on this stage who would have no chance to get pipelines built because of derogatory remarks they've made about Indigenous Canadians.
I mean, we already know you don't give a shit about Indigenous Canadians. Like, you don't have to pretend anymore. And like, why the fuck are you still crying about a pipeline that didn't happen? Like, who cares? And it's like it's not even fucking Trudeau's fault either. You have Brandon to thank for that, so that ultimately doesn't even matter.
Dr. Lewis.
Well, that person certain. I know that Mr. Brown does not refer to me on that one. So it is very important that we look at the entire life cycle of a product. So even when we commit to something like net zero, we should not be virtue signaling to use the environment as virtue signaling. We have to ensure that we look at the entire
I mean, net zero
life
is
cycle
virtue
of a
signaling.
product. So even if we have a green product, we have to look at the entire production from the start to the finish, such as green energy, such as green cars, electric cars. What is the entire product?
Mr. Brown, you have 30.
So if the premise to get pipelines built is Indigenous collaboration, I'd have to ask Pierre Poilievre the question how he believes he could ever get a single pipeline built in this country when on the heels of Prime Minister Harper's historic residential school apology, he attacked in a disgusting manner Indigenous Canadians, saying they lacked work ethic. Someone who attacks Indigenous
forgot he did
partners
that.
who we require to build pipelines will never be able to build a single pipeline in this country.
And Dr. Lewis, you have the last 30 seconds.
I just wanted to expand on my
Fucking love that
comment
guy.
about the entire life cycle. I'm very concerned with things like electric vehicles, that we do not consider the fact that it starts off in poor countries, in some African countries where children as young as 5 years old are working in cobalt mines. So when we think of protecting the environment...
Yeah, but like, it doesn't matter because the cobalt mines aren't owned by us, they're owned by China. Like, I think 5 of the 6 major ones are owned by China. And don't get me wrong, that's fucking horrible. But like, that's none of our concern as far as I'm aware. Like, we don't give a shit about what happens in Africa because we do the exact same fucking shit. Whether it's in Africa or South America or anywhere else that's in the global south.
environment, we must think of the entire impact, the entire life cycle.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to say anything? Mr. Charest.
Well, this is a key issue for us. We need to do a lot of things, including carbon capture and storage, hydrogen, blue-green, biofuels, small modular reactors. Alberta, Ontario, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan are working together to develop those technologies. Replace the carbon tax of Mr. Trudeau with something similar to what Alberta's doing for large emitters, and have a credible policy on this in the next campaign, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, our government will not be elected.
I mean, I doubt it will be
Mr.
elected
Aitchison.
either way.
Thank you.
Because there's like no shot the PR is not going to be chosen as the candidate, and then you guys are going to lose to Trudeau again. Because you guys are just dog shit.
I actually would propose a similar plan to what former Prime Minister Harper had in 2008. It's similar to what Mr. Charest has proposed in this campaign. In fact, I'm making my cabinet right here as we go. I'd make him Minister of the Environment, probably. And I think we need to offer a balanced regulatory approach. I do agree with taxing the large industrial emitters. But I think it's important to point out what's going on right here in Alberta. The innovative work going on in the economy here is something that we need to take an opportunity to sell our products to the world to help countries like China reduce their emissions.
I think that's it. No, I see no
Oh,
more.
wait, what? But China's been reducing their own emissions by themselves. Like, their emissions have gone down, like, drastically ever since, they decided to invest into green energy and shit.
Paddles being raised. I just want to say that you have been also incredibly disciplined with your time, that we find ourselves in the lovely position of me being able to offer some time back to all of you. Throughout this debate, no doubt you have been dying to say something about what has been discussed here today. So I want to go down the line, and we'll just take it in geographical order here, starting with Dr. Lewis and go down the line. 30 seconds to say anything that you have wanted to say that you didn't get to say so far. 30 seconds each. Dr. Lewis, up to you.
I wanted to add on my point for the environment that we can protect the environment without punishing average Canadians. Every time they're filling up their gas tanks, they're heating their homes, they're putting food on the table, they're being punished with the carbon tax. I would cancel the carbon tax.
Thank you very much. Mr. Baber.
First of all, I really enjoyed today's debate, and of course I appreciate the tone. I think it's okay to have a little bit of fun as we did last time around. And also I think that we should encourage people to speak more freely. A lot of candidates may wish to respond to one another. We should perhaps accommodate such opportunity. And finally, if I may, in the 10 seconds they'll give me, I think that we should not be afraid to stand for what we believe is the Conservative Party. And unfortunately, I'm out of time.
You're out of time. Mr. Charest.
I look forward to working with everyone on stage here, and Mr. Aitchison, I appreciate the invitation. I want to talk about resources and point something out here about Canada. We have a knowledge-based economy, but a good part of our exports are resources. Whether it's mining, oil, gas, whether it's pipelines, we need to stand up for the development of our resource industry. And we need a prime minister who's actually going to say this is a good idea. We can do this in transition to zero emissions in 2050. It is possible to do it, and only the Conservative Party of Canada has the ability to offer that leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Charest. Mr. Aitchison, what have you been dying to say?
Well, I guess I really think it's important to say that as Conservatives, we need to have the courage of our convictions to defend our values and our principles. Our values and principles as Conservatives are timeless. And if we stick to those,
Are they, though?
And if we offer a principled, consistent message to Canadians, we can form the next government.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
That's what they said last time.
I believe in technology, not taxes. In Brampton will be the first big city in Canada to have a fully electrified transit fleet, clean, green, and no emissions. I should also say, we need to have a conversation about a carbon tariff at the border. The fact that some candidates on the stage are okay to allow India and China to flood the market where they have no environmental standards, they have no labor standards, and compete with Canadian goods is wrong. We need to create a Canadian advantage.
But, like, that's not even true. Like, China has higher standards on that stuff than we do. And I don't know why you brought up India. India is, like, not a major player in the global marketplace.
And protect against product being dumped with no environmental cost.
Thank you very much. Mr. Polyev.
Yeah, he's not going to win.
The biggest issue I've heard about that people haven't talked about today is housing. Our 32, 33-year-old people living in their parents' basements. We have the fewest houses in Canada per capita in the G7. At the same time, our central bank has been printing money to inflate prices.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I want to have my tendies and have them brought to me. That just sounds pretty nice. I don't know, but
the solution is, of course, to fire the gatekeepers. I've already announced that I will fire the governor of the central bank to get inflation under control, but I will also
that would actually make things worse,
dollars
though.
for cities to the number of houses they allow to get built by removing the red tape and allowing builders to build homes for our young people to live in.
Okay, but you also have... How are you going to do that when the housing market's dog shit, though? Like, if the housing market stays dog shit, no one's going to be able to buy a house, and you're just... It's just making... will just make things worse.
Thank you very much. We are now going to the final section of the debate. And once again, all the candidates have been advised in advance of this. And it is simply to, we started the debate with the question, what is my vision for Canada is, ... This question is, why should I be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, ... 45 seconds to each of you to answer that question, and we are going to start with Scott Aitchison.
I believe it's 30 seconds, is it not?
We've increased it to 45.
Really?
Yeah.
I got my 45 back. We must welcome more people to our party if we are to succeed, but we cannot do it with angry rhetoric and attacks on each other. Leaders always engage, empower, and inspire the team around them. As leader, I will bring Conservatives together, and we will earn the trust of all Canadians to govern again. I know our best days lie ahead, With our team focused on all that unites us, we will fulfill the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And if you seek a Conservative government focused on making life more affordable, join me. Join me at votescott.ca.
I fucking love this. Like, it's really funny watching conservatives tear each other apart, though. Like to be fair, like watching these hogs go at it is super fucking funny.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aitchison. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Tom. I want to be leader of the Conservative Party of Canada because we need a leader who can defeat Justin Trudeau, not just yell at him. We need to expand our party with new members, new supporters, new volunteers, and most importantly, new voters. But it'll never happen if we choose a leader who repels voters and supports failed, election-losing policies that trample over the religious freedom of Canadians. I won in the GTA by proving to voters who have traditionally not supported the Conservative Party that their values are our values, Conservative values. With your support, we can do that on a national scale from coast to coast to coast and win.
Thank you very much,
that's not
Mr.
going to
Brown.
happen.
We are now going to Dr. Lewis. 45 seconds.
Are we not doing Mr. Polyev? No? Oh, me? Okay.
We drew for these slots, and you drew number 3, so
Thank you.
there you go.
Canadians are tired of legacy politicians that will say anything to get elected. Wokeism and cancel culture are robbing people of their voices. Our Charter of Rights needs to be defended. As your leader, I pledge to work tirelessly to heal our institutions and win back the trust of Canadians. But I can't do it alone. I hope you will join this movement to restore our declining democracy and return prosperity to Canada, because only then will we remain glorious and free.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. And Mr. Charest.
Thank you, Tom. There are millions of Canadians who are orphans in this country right now. They're political orphans, and they are looking for a national alternative and a Conservative alternative. We need to be that party. I want to lead that party. I want to unite the party, and I want to offer a national vision, not based on anger, not based on tearing down institutions, but on building our country. We are the most privileged citizens in the world. We won the lottery of citizenship. We should be living up to that aspiration, passing on to our children the country that we received from our parents. It is your responsibility and mine to do that. And as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, I will give you a national majority government.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Charest.
that won't happen.
Mr. Polyev.
People feel like they've lost control of their lives. Elderly people who have to choose between heating and eating. Single moms who can no longer afford sporting for their kids.
Oh,
Full
no.
of grown adults stuck in their parents' basement, not able to start a family or build
I
home
want my
equity for the
tendies.
future. Inflation out of control at a 30-year high, and a government that instead of hearing these concerns tries to censor them by cracking down on the population. I'm running for Prime Minister to put you back in control of your life by making Canada the freest nation on earth, by removing the gatekeepers so that we can build more homes for our young people, unleash opportunity for our energy workers, reduce our energy costs so everyone can go where they want and heat their home. Make this the country that is the freest on earth so you can take back control of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polyev. And final word goes to Roman Baber.
Thank you. My name is Roman Baber. I was born in a communist regime, and I'm very scared for what is happening to Canada's democracy. And I'm running to become Prime Minister so I can defend Canada's democracy.
Wait, where is he
what
from?
What you hear is what you get. For the last 2 years, I've been staying here trying to defend Canadians because I'm not afraid to say what I believe. I'm not afraid of cancel culture or the left-wing lockdown mob. I love Canada.
I mean, like, first of all, the cancel culture doesn't even fucking work. It just doesn't work. So I don't know why he's crying about that. And like, conservatives love engaging in cancel culture. Are you fucking kidding me? And then like the left wing lockdown mob, like the only people that actually fucking went out during fucking lockdowns were like anti-mask dumbass conservatives.
Canada, and I love Canadians. And you can always count on me to defend you and your family. No matter how hard it gets, you will always know where I stand. I ask that you become eligible to vote at joinroman.ca and that you rank me number 1. Thank you so much for welcoming all of us tonight.
Thank you, candidates, very much. It was a challenging format, but I think that we did well. I just want everybody to know that you will all be, we're getting the band back together again on May 25th in Laval, Quebec for the French debate. You can all tune into that as well. On behalf of myself, I just want to thank all of you.
I might not watch that.
A superb debate tonight, an exchange of ideas. As I said, good, passionate debate is the lifeblood of good democracy. Thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I was honestly expecting it to be way much more unhinged and fun, but it was kind of boring. Like there were some fun moments in there, but like there was like nothing.
That is tonight's debate.
Okay, let's move on to why there are no black people in video games.
In this video, I'll be discussing the controversial topic of race. In video games, a topic that I'm not an expert on, but I did do a lot of research for this video. Plus, I do have a couple decades of personal experience to draw upon. Like with all of my videos, I make some jokes and make some serious points, and I trust that you, the viewer, will be able to tell the difference. Basically, if it sounds like I might be joking, I probably am. When I was teenage Mr. Spaceman and playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, my best character was Mr. Game & Watch. And when my friends would ask, why do you keep playing as Game & Watch? I would jokingly tell them, oh, I play as him because he's the only black character in the game. Also, his down throw to down smash combo is super cheap, I love it. Fast forward to now, the Smash roster has gone from 12 characters to like 90. They got everyone in this game. They got Castlevania, they got Dracula, they got Kingdom Heart, they got Hentai, they got Noodles. Over 50 different games represented in the roster, from Nintendo games to other companies' games, and out of almost 100 characters, with the exception of the customizable Mii fighters that can look like however you want, how many black characters can you play as? 2! And they're not even on the character select screen. They're alternate palette swaps. 3 if you count Pokemon Trainer, but technically you play as the Pokemon, not the trainer. Compared to... Yeah, okay. Maybe you could count Ganondorf too, but...
Hold your fire! This man isn't black!
That's right, y'all. Today we're gonna be talking about black people, race, and diversity in video games. Happy Black History Month. Oh, god dang it! Well, that guy can't tell time. And yes, the irony of the video about black people being late is not lost on me. But you know what? No, this was done on purpose. It doesn't have to be the shortest month of the year to acknowledge black people. And before anyone is a funny guy and comments,
what are you talking about? There have always been black people in Smash. Donkey Kong's right there.
Wow, what an original joke. You have the best material. Also, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to lump black and dark-skinned under the same umbrella and use them interchangeably, which technically is not correct, but racial terms get confusing when it's not talking about real places, and it'll make sense in the context of this video. Alright, that's enough disclaimers. Anyways, look, I'm not accusing the creators of Smash of doing a racism or anything. Smash Bros. Is a reflection of the gaming industry, pulling its roster, stages, and content from all sorts of different game series, primarily Nintendo games. Nintendo has very few humanoid characters, and many of its franchises mostly rely on legacy characters rather than inventing new ones. The only human characters in Mario are Mario, Peach, Toad, and variations on those designs. The last new mainstay Mario character was who? Rosalina? Back in 2007? 15 years ago? Remember how they whitewashed Daisy? Are there any black characters in Mario? What the fuck? So don't get your Zelda shirt and cargo shorts in a tussle. I'm not hopping online to say that Nintendo doesn't care about black people. Many of the series represented by the Smash roster have black and dark-skinned characters in those games. Plus, recent Nintendo games have definitely done more of an effort in terms of diversity. You've got Marina from Splatoon 2. She's a news reporter and a DJ and an inventor, and she speaks every time you turn the game on. Literally every time you turn the game on. You've got Twintel from ARMS. She's an actress who uses her hair to fight. While most of them are background NPCs, you've got all the Gerudo women from Zelda Breath of the Wild. Urbosa was a very popular champion from the game, plus a few longtime characters like Doc Lewis from Punch-Out, but then there's the rest of the Punch-Out roster that mostly relies on stereotypes, so Ugh. And Pokemon. The last 4 generations of Pokemon took place all over the world. Univa's USA, you got multiple characters like Iris, Gym Leader and Champion. Kalos is France, There's Grant. Alola is Hawaii, you've got many dark-skinned characters there. Galar is Britain, innit? And you've got characters like Nessa, where some artists on Twitter pulled shit like this. It's not even gonna appear in front of the green screen properly.
I mean, like, Nessa
But Mr.
has a great design
Spaceman,
either
what are you
ways.
talking about? There's plenty of great
I
black
didn't
video
really see
game
a
characters.
reason
You've
that
got
they did
Liam
that.
Clementine from Walking Dead, Coach from Left 4 Dead, Shinobu from No More Heroes, Miles Morales
Shinobu's
from
great.
Spider-Man, Franklin and CJ from Grand Theft Auto, Matt from Wii Sports, Anthony Higgs from Metroid Other M, Captain Anderson from Mass Effect, Sergeant Johnson from Halo, 50 Cent from 50 Cent, Vince Young from Madden 08. There's so many. Isn't that enough for you people? Plus, the University of Southern California did a study in 2009 showing that black characters appear in video games in proportion to their population data in the 2000 US Census. Well, first off, that study comes with a big asterisk, being that most black characters are from sports games that are, you know, real people, licensed products that are adapted from other comics, movies, and TV, and in titles and roles that often reinforce stereotypes. And my main point is that in many video games, it's almost never the main character, and rarely is there more than one. Do you want to play as a black person? Well, your options are limited. In ensemble games like fighting games, there's usually an international cast and a wide variety of people to play as. In RPGs that feature a party of people that travel the world, it's a little hit and miss. Dragon Quest, 0. Final Fantasy 1 through 6, 0 dark-skinned playable characters except for Minwu in 2, who dies. No, I don't count Black Mage. But in Final Fantasy 7, which had a more modern setting than the previous ones, there was Barret, a Mr. T-inspired environmental freedom fighter who cares deeply about his adopted daughter Marlene. He's a great character. In the remake. In the original, I liked him, but he came off as the stereotypical angry black man. But since then, there have been more, like Kyros in 8, Saz in 13, not a single person in 15.
Bro.
And this dude in the recent Kill Chaos Simulator. But again, none of these characters could be considered the main character, and while one is better than none, they're the only one in games with dozens of characters. Why can't there be 2?
Bullshit. You get one, unfortunately.
Xenoblade Chronicles 1 had multiple characters in a game of varying skin complexions. Xenoblade Chronicles X's real main character was Elma. I would say more about Elma, but spoilers. And Xenoblade 2 had Vandam, who dies like an hour after he joins. Alright, I'ma head out. In many games, you instead create your own character. Wow, this character creator is great! As long as they're not trying to make a black person.
I mean, like, when it comes to making black people in video games, like, it's so bad. Like, you get like 3 hair color options and like or 3 hairstyle options, and that's it. Like, they could easily do better.
Players like to create a character that somewhat resembles themselves. Not everyone does this, but many people do. Most character creators let you change your skin color, with the exception of Fire Emblem. Why do you have to look like this when your in-game dad looks like this? And
True.
the original Animal Crossing, where if you wanted your character to have dark skin, you had to have a Game Boy Advance, have a Game Boy Advance GameCube link cable, connect your Game Boy Advance to your GameCube using a Game Boy Advance GameCube link cable, get on Captain's boat, listen to the song, go to the island, wait around for an hour on the island, then your character will have a tan for a couple of days. I know this because my mom loved Animal Crossing and would do this once a week because she wanted to play as a character that looks more like her. Thankfully, skin color options are in pretty much every recent game, at least the ones that I've seen. However, hairstyles are another story. There will usually be dozens of options of hairstyles available, common ones, anime ones, wacky ones, but if you want a hairstyle with that type 3 and 4 hair, I don't know the proper term for it, black people hair, something that is traditionally of cultural significance to the black community, then your options.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. Like, when it comes to the black community, their hair is like arguably some of the most important cultural signifiers that they have. Like, literally just talk to like any black person like that.
If any, are usually buzz cut, afro, and
True.
Who do you know who's rocking corals? No, I want names.
True. No one fucking wears cornrows anymore.
looking like a little Bow Wow. The fact is, many people like to create characters that look a certain way, especially when that way is not present in over 95% of games. So the lack of options here is a little disappointing. But to be fair, some recent games do have black hair options, or at least have patched them in later. And I don't need to feel represented in every game I play. I don't always try to create myself in character creators because I usually can't. And I'm not gonna be like,
There's not a single black person in Kirby, therefore is racist. Humph.
but there's definitely more to be desired.
Mr. Spaceman, you mostly talk about Japanese games. Of course there aren't a lot of black people in Japanese games. There's no black people in Japan.
Well, I would say that if you're making an international game marketed to an international audience translated into multiple languages, it's sometimes weirder when they're not there, or when there's only one. Footage unrelated. Also, what are you talking about? There's Japanese black people, but what about Western games? Welcome to the Western AAA video game industry, where we feature
Oh, hell yeah. This is the main character.
entirely unique protagonists in our games with wholly original designs.
What are you talking about? They're all different. Look at them. Character number 1 has a totally different look than character number 12.
It's not all the same person? Look,
True.
am I accusing all these game developers of being racist? Other than some of their hiring practices? Of course not. This is more a symptom that's endemic to Western media as a whole, not just video games.
Yeah, that's another thing. When it comes to like hiring practices for game development companies, they're usually pretty fucking racist about it. Like they generally won't accept anyone or anyone of color, which is ridiculous.
There's a lot of money going into these productions, so more often than not, they're going to play it safe in their design decisions. And what's safe is usually the tried and true, and what the tried and true is to have a short-haired, white male protagonist probably shooting a gun, because in their mind, that's what's guaranteed to turn the most profit. Yeah, it turns out that capitalism was the true final boss all along.
Hey guys,
Who
it's
would've
me,
thought?
famous game designer Davey Jaffe. If you could go into a nightclub and murder a bunch of minorities for a platinum trophy, in a video game of course, would you do it?
No.
Just because you think of a tweet doesn't mean you have to hit the send button. That's not even how platinum trophies work. As many of you already know, I do not like or respect the Game Awards, but other people do, so here's a list of the Game of the Year nominees that feature a black person as the main protagonist
Let me
in
guess,
the past
none.
8 years of the show's existence.
Let me guess, there's none. Right.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only one. And it was this year. Again, I don't need to see a Captain Planet style racial spectrum in the roster of every video game or every show or movie I watch. But I don't know, as a lifelong black person, of course I'm a little biased, but it's a little weird. I'm sure it's something that most people don't ever think about, but it crosses my mind sometimes when creative works are like, we're going to create a multi-continent spanning epic tale featuring dozens of fictional characters. Oh hey, that's cool. And everyone's white.
Wait, what?
Have y'all heard of the Bechdel test for women in media? It wasn't meant as a standard that work should go out of their way to meet, but more of a thought experiment to discuss gender representation in media. Well, I propose the Blackdel test for black and dark-skinned people. Here's the test. 1. Are there at least 2 black people? That's it! That's the whole test! If everyone was
See,
black in a
step
work
one.
that didn't take place in either Africa or the hood, people would be
Remember when like Call of Duty had you go to like someplace in Africa and murder a bunch of black people? That was fucking wild, man. Like, why? Why would you do that?
like, why is everyone black? But then when everyone's white, no one ever asks. It's just assumed to be the norm.
Why are you white? Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
But I can. Why is it this way? Representation matters, especially in media. Here are quotes from people much more learned than me in this subject that you can pause and read. And it's
I completely agree. Like, media should 100% do a way better job when it comes to representation. Like, it's completely awful, but like at the same time, like, media, whether it be like movies, TV shows, games, whatever, generally tends to be a reflection on the society itself. But I do agree there should 100% be more black representation in games. Well, not even just black representation, like really any other representation outside of like a straight buff white guy who's a gun.
Easy for some people to say that representation doesn't matter when you've been represented by 99% of all media ever. All I'm saying is, I've been to over 100 Division I college basketball games, I was in the band, and I've never seen the mostly white crowd go wilder than when the one white boy on the team scores a pivotal three-pointer. So don't tell me representation doesn't matter to anyone. As it turns out, the majority skin color is usually seen as the default in that region, and anything else is a variation from the norm. In Western media, light skin is viewed as the default, and any variation from that is viewed as an optional exception. But regardless of where you live, there is no default skin tone. Well, human life did start in Africa, so technically if there were to be a default, it would be
black.
Anyways, when you, I don't know, try to mix up the colors for once, you get cries of
Forced diversity
and
virtue signaling.
Maybe
And white genocide. Like, it's so fucking... Like, who cares, honestly? Like, I just say let them cry, because it's better, or it's just free advertisement for your game.
it's not forced diversity, maybe it's this piece of media stars people, so the people will be reflective of people. If you were making a story about, I don't know, bunnies, you wouldn't make them all white bunnies. You'd probably use other colors of bunnies, right? So
why not, brother? There's only one color bunny, and that's white.
why is it different with people? You have all these different colors to choose from, yet many creatives consistently choose these ones, and I go, I wonder why that is. So it's not forced diversity, it's any sort of variety having never been previously considered in the first place. Many recent game titles have tried to break away. Well, I'd be remiss if I failed to mention that indie games, the last bastion of integrity and creativity in the games industry, have been doing it for years. But
indie games are really, really good when it comes to that. Just in general, I think indie games generally tend to hit the mark better.
major titles have begun to do it, which of course leads to comments from gamers, well, gamers, like,
another great franchise ruined by SJWs trying to earn woke points by pushing their agenda of acknowledging minorities exist. Horizon Forbidden.
Yeah, like, it's crazy. Like, whenever you see, like, someone with, like, darker skin, or, like, even a woman, like, they lose their shit, and it's so annoying. I'm like, who cares? Like, no one cares.
West, it's so unrealistically diverse.
I would love for you to expand on what you mean by that. Apex Legends had multiple minorities in its roster, which led to comments like this. Hang on, let me get my white person voice ready.
Video games going out of their way to be inclusive in order to appeal to the smallest subset of their user base is ridiculous. People...
Isn't, like, Valorant really good for having a higher base of female gamers? Like, don't female gamers in Valorant make up like 60% of the player base or something like that? So, I mean, like, part of it is due to marketing, but, like, yeah, no, like, there's definitely ways that,
who play video games are mainly straight white males. Now let's look at Apex Legends, the new game published by EA. There is only one white dude in the whole lineup of characters. He's locked initially, and his abilities are toxic. Can't make this shit up.
And whenever you see statements like this, there's always one word that tells on them.
I have no issue with females and blacks being in game.
Papela.
But...
There it is.
There is so much I could say about this, and it was posted on an unpopular opinion subreddit, so the poster already correctly assumes that most people would disagree with them. But I think one big thing is that some people seem to forget is everyone plays video games. Across all races, nationalities, gender identities, sexual orientations, everyone plays video games. From Mario to Sonic, Fortnite to Garena Free Fire to Candy Crush to Solitaire to freaking Wordle, everyone.
Who fucking plays Candy Crush still? Grandma, is that you?
One plays some type of video game. So even if certain players living in their own bubble have been conditioned over generations to think that white men are the ones who mostly play games, so white men should be the default video game protagonist, it's simply not true.
Wait, what? Yo, let's go.
Black people? In my medieval fantasy, how dare you insert politics into this game about war? This breaks my immersion. It's based off of Europe. There should only be
yes, games based off of war. I don't want to think about politics, even though it's like inherently political in nature.
White people! I played video games for the escapism of people of color not existing!
It's an argument I've seen a lot, especially recently, so I will debunk it once and for all. Get ready for Mr. Spaceman's logic and reasoning spectacular. It's true that many fantasy stories take inspiration from medieval European ideas, knights, castles, chivalry, and so forth. If a story takes place in a historical setting, such as actual 7th century Britain or something like that, and the intent of the work is some degree of historical authenticity, then it would sort of make sense for most people's skin color to look similar, even if it does have some mystical elements layered on top, like King Arthur, fake guy, but a real setting. So
I would love to see like a medieval style game take place in like Africa. That would be so much fun. And then like actually pull inspiration from like old African cultures and mythos and stuff like that. That would be so much fun. I would love to experience that.
Wouldn't expect too many people who look like me walking around, just like I wouldn't expect a game like Ghost of Tsushima to have too many people who aren't Japanese, just as I wouldn't expect Black Panther to have too many white people walking around Wakanda. However, this argument falls apart when it's a completely made up world, like just picking randomly out of a hat here for no timely reason at all, Middle Earth.
But people from the same region usually look similar, or at least have the same skin color,
people will decry. Yes, this is often the case. However, when you're creating a setting for a grand epic, you can't just consider one place, but also the surrounding areas. Wouldn't it make sense that places would trade?
True. As a DM who makes up stories and everything on the regular, like you're gonna have a whole bunch of different areas. You have to have like trade relations, whether that be like commodities or relationships or other stuff, allies, enemies, whole bunch of other stuff like that as well. It's very like the world is complex, so and if you're going to be making like a world, it should be complex too.
Trade with other regions for exotic goods and resources they don't have, and that over time people would travel and migrate via these trade routes and settle down in other regions? Yes, because that is what people have done for centuries in the real world.
Basically, people move, not to mention wars and other conflicts.
So what makes a genre? Is it the class structure, technological setting, tropes, and themes? Or is it purely the melanin content of the characters? So if anyone says,
it wouldn't make sense that everyone wouldn't be white,
then at best it could be described as lazy world building, and at worst it could be concluded that the creator may have a racial preference or bias, intentional or not, in a made up.
Like if you want to actually like add like people that aren't white or whatever, like have an open have your game available for like during like the play phase, like the build phase. Ask players for feedback, and you know, if there's something that's not okay or whatever, or something wrong, you can always fix it, right? And like have a diverse group of players as well. Have like casuals, have hardcore players, have women, have men, have white people, have black people, like and everything in between. Like who cares? And like if there's something that you can improve on, or something, or a fan that's playing the game or something, like notice it gives you advice, being like, hey, this is how things are like in our, try and implement that.
Place, you can have skin color vary between people in a similar way that hair color does. The Witcher series on Netflix was proof of this. That is a thing that you can do, and only the worst types of people will get upset about it.
Which would give your game a lot of free promo. Just saying.
Obviously, there are exceptions. For example, isolated places like Kamura Village in Monster Hunter Rise, where everyone there appears Japanese. Or again, Wakanda, where everyone there is Wakandan. On the other hand, you can work in different races into your story. Fire Emblem, I'm bringing it up again. Fire Emblem didn't have a black character until the 9th game in the series with Devdin, and he was weird. In the game that was about furry slavery, fast forward to the 16th game in the series, Three Houses, where the game takes
I love Claude. Claude is great. Claude's my man.
Place on the continent of Fodlan. There's no scale given, but the story makes a lot more logistical sense if you imagine Fodlan is the size of like Texas.
We've gained more ground in our war campaign. Let's go retreat back to the monastery
for a month.
The people of Fodlan.
Yeah, I fucking hated that. Like, really? We have the advantage right now. Let's go back to the monastery for a month. Like, what kind of sense does that make?
Are white, and people from outside of Fodlan are not.
I really like well to do is a great character.
And through the conversations, they provide outside perspectives on the conflicts and dynamics in the story.
And like when it came to Dedue's story as well, like he experienced a shit ton of racism too. They did not pull back punches on that.
Enriches the setting and makes the world feel more lived in. Final thoughts, including answers to hypothetical questions and preemptive defenses against bad faith interpretations of what I've said, such as,
well, you have a pretty good looking game here.
Thanks.
But upon inspection, you didn't quite hit the minority quota, so I'm gonna have to declare it racist.
For most people, as long as the game is good, who gives a shit who they're playing as? Even that Reddit comment earlier pointed that out. This isn't something I've been silently fuming over for almost 30 years or think about all the time. Most of the games I've mentioned today are games that I like, but I do think it's worth bringing up, since I think it's something a lot of people have never thought about before. Now I have some action items to consider. If you're making a story, reverse your thinking. Instead of going, wow, one black person, that seems out of place. Instead think, does it make in-universe sense for everyone to be the same skin color? Something I'm not advocating for in video games is swapping the race of existing established characters. It often comes off as a performative gesture. For example, making Sam Wilson the next Captain America, thumbs up. Suddenly changing Steve Rogers to a black guy, thumbs down, unless the story you're making is specifically an exploration of what kind of difference that would make in his life.
I mean, like, honestly, like, sometimes it doesn't even really matter too much, because, like, when it comes to, like, Nick Fury, for example, like, I love, like, MCU Nick Fury. And, like, they completely changed that, like, changed him up and everything. He was initially white in the comics. But I think that the MCU version of Nick Fury is significantly better.
Try to avoid stereotypes. Characters don't have to be defined by their race or gender. Just write interesting, fully fleshed out characters, then consider making some of the new characters non-light-skinned people. Have more hair options in character creators. The open source Afro hair library is a great place to start. Mr. Spaceman, I don't feel comfortable having black characters in my story because as a non-black person, I don't think I can capture the black experience. Who is telling you to do that? No one is telling you to do that. People can just be black, and that's it. For many characters, the black experience isn't a factor in their story. It's not like every white character captures the white experience of, country clubs? Mayonnaise? Colonization? Voting against your own self-interest? However, if you...
True. Oh, it's fucking awesome. Yeah, no, like, who cares? Like, you're not going to be capturing, like, the experience of certain character or certain ethnicities, so it ultimately doesn't even matter. Like, I when I created my world in D&D, I have so much like interactions and everything, and like different races, different skin tones and stuff like that. So yeah, no, like of course, like there's going to be like a whole bunch of other stuff to deal with, but like you're not going to be capturing like the black experience when you come to a game, unless you're specifically making a game detailed around that subject matter. But you should be actually talking to people who are in that community, right?
Want to do that, then I don't know, maybe ask black people for help and make sure they're compensated for their time as well. Mr. Spaceman, I don't want different skin colors or races in my story because I don't want my story to be about race and racism. Maybe I'm an idealist, but I don't assume that racism is inevitable. It's societal learned behavior. Mr. Spaceman, I'm not very good at designing or drawing black characters. There's barely any resources on it. Well, how do you think you get better at doing something? By doing it. I don't know, use good references.
Isn't it racist to even point out the skin color of characters? I only see them as characters.
If someone says that, that's a self-report. Like, that's just a report. I'm sorry.
Don't see their color.
Why you gotta bring race into this?
I don't know. Why is my race usually left out of it? Why did my neighbors call the cops on me in college because they thought I was breaking into my own house when I walked in the front door in broad daylight? Did they leave race out of it? Fuck, man. This is a multifaceted topic with other aspects to explore that I don't have time to talk about today, so I'm just gonna call it here. I foresee nothing bad happening after this. Nope. Nothing at all. Can't wait to see all the extremely supportive comments on this video, yup! And I'll close with, while a lot of progress has been made, there's still several IKEA's worth of rooms for improvement. Anyways, thanks for sticking around till the end, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to...
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good video. Some more stuff at some point. Anyways, I think I'm gonna end it there. Still have some stuff I need to do, so yeah, it was fun watching debate and fun watching this. Until next time.